what do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God!
And tonight on the ABC News, OJ Simpson kills one more person. Oh my God, I can't believe it. OJ kills another person? I didn't know Minute Maid orange juice could kill people. I guess well, what happened here was that someone poisoned the OJ and, well, killed somebody. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on ABC, the horrible news in the whole world. Thank you. Well, I hope you liked how I did my commercials. You know, I'm gonna be a star. I've always been a star, you know. I just have to go to Hollywood, and then I'll just, you know, everybody would be like going, oh, I want your autograph, oh, I want your autograph. But anyways, see you later. Adios. Ciao.
Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are we all doing? It's that time. It's the time to start the closing arguments for the OJ Simpson. This is episode 52. We've skipped a few weeks, so we've been doing this for more than a year, but if we would have done this every single week, it would be the 1 year anniversary. But it's our 52nd episode. Time to start the closing arguments, and they're long closing arguments, so this is going to take a while. It'd be like the never-ending closing arguments, but hey, I'm glad you guys are here. I mean, you just kind of adjust the camera with the toes. There we go. Chandler will be here in just a minute. She got the link a bit late. I hadn't heard from her. She disappeared, but then she resurfaced. We're here. Yes, it is Flux's Killdozer hat. We're wearing Flux's Killdozer hat. Thank you, Flux. I'm keeping it safe for you until you ask for it back. Well, you shouldn't be surprised that we're not using the Norm McDonald clips from Saturday Night Live, because Saturday Night Live is brutal with their copyright strikes. They don't do copyright claims. They do copyright strikes. They will take your channel out in a heartbeat. So yeah, we don't do that. So while we're waiting for Chandler, I guess we can do a couple of things. I'm enjoying a new release from my friend's brewery. You can't see it here. Oh, there you are. Gorilla Brewing here in Busan, Korea. This is Double Dive. It's a double IPA, 9.5% alcohol. It's a delicious, delicious beer. It's kind of fruity. It's got a lot of citrus in it. That's so good. And I don't even like beer. See, I don't like beer. I'm not a beer drinker, but Gorilla Brewing makes some amazing, amazing beers. And the owner is a very good friend of mine from England. So for those of you that care, who are beer heads, the malt is Pilsner wheat. What the hell is that? Cara Red, flaked oats, and malted oats. So I mean, this is a nice, smooth yet very bitter double IPA. So there we go. And what we're pairing this with is a little bit of Korean cuisine. It's another night of what are we eating in Korea. I guess we can talk about this while we're waiting. This is traditional great Korean street food. It's called tteokbokki. Tteokbokki is one of my favorite comfort foods ever. It's like the Korean equivalent of taco trucks. There's places that sell them all over the place in the streets, in the markets. And let's bring up the other cam here and see what we can discover. All right. Let's see. We want to add here and do this. Yeah, this is tteokbokki here. It's essentially what do we got? These are rice cakes here. They're like rice cakes and some pressed fish cakes with I don't even know what cognac is in English. It's kind of like a jelly kind of thing. It's quite delicious, but as you can see, it's quite spicy. It's one of my favorite things. It's just dirt cheap. This giant bowl here cost about $6, and this is about 3 meals, and this is all nice Korean red pepper paste, gochujang, and some sugar and some water and some other stuff in there. That's fantastic. And what you eat, you always pair that. You always eat it with what we have here in the bowl. This is blood sausage. This is Korean blood sausage. It's essentially rice and blood in a pig's intestine. So the sausage is quite fantastic, really, really good. And you have bits of steamed liver with it. A nice, delicious steamed liver always makes things good. And to eat the blood sausage, you have a. Are y'all having fun yet? To eat the blood sausage, you have it's kind of a miso soy paste that you just kind of just dip it in and give it a nice big taste. Exactly, Adam. Always kind of like a black pudding thing. Or alternatively, you just kind of put in like a little sea salt, and that's how you eat it. So you get the steamed blood sausage with the steamed liver, and then the super spicy rice cakes and fish cakes. That's it. All right, that's Korean food for the day. It's our OJ Simpson mukbang. Oh yeah, very, very iron rich food. And see, for the longest time, the blood sausage was like my second least favorite food in the entire country. Now, after about 30 years, I started to enjoy it. So now it's pretty good. It took a while to get this place. This place is so good that makes all of this. I really wish you could join me here and we could go down to this old traditional market where they sell this place. I mean, even in the middle of winter, you can go there at 2:00 in the morning on a weekday, and there's still going to be a line of people waiting. Yeah, you got a little bit of orange there on the hand. This is the sauce of death. It gets on your hands. It doesn't come off. It gets on your clothes. You got to wash them immediately or kiss the clothes goodbye. But that's the delicious food that I'm eating tonight. And speaking of delicious, we have Chandler Remington here. Hi, Chandler.
Hi. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm quite well. Any 4:30 a.m. duck poke for you?
No, I did not have. I would have made a breakfast sandwich. I've been making these really delicious breakfast sandwiches lately, and my cats got to enjoy a part of one recently because I dropped the entire fried egg on the floor after frying it in pancetta fat. So that was delicious for them, but it was also delicious for me. I would have made that if I had gotten up early enough this morning.
Oh, yeah. This is the authentic. Did you see it on the camera?
I did not. No.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, let's see if we can hold it up this way here. Yeah, this is the authentic off the street stuff here.
Ooh.
It is just it's super delicious, spicy. And
that looks good. That looks so much better than the one that I tried to make from Trader Joe's, which ended up like a soup, kind of. I did not do that right.
Oh no, it's like a lot of people, especially up in Seoul, they'll drink it more. They'll eat it more with more soupy sauce. In here down in the southern part in Busan, it tends to be a thicker sauce. But we've also got some blood sausage and some steamed liver to go with it.
Nice. Well, I'm sure it's tastier in Korea. I'm sure it's much better. So I'd love to come and try that.
I was saying, I wish I could have everybody over here because this is just so delish. And you look quite amazing for someone who's just rolled out of the sack at 30 in the morning. And
oh God, no, I don't. What are you talking about?
Yes,
Liar.
you do.
No,
and it's good to see you back online again.
It's good to be here. I missed everybody. I had a lot of tech problems, and I'm still fixing them. I probably am going to have to get a new laptop, but you know what? I'm doing what I can for now. So I'm here, and I'm really, really happy to be here. I missed everybody last week. I heard there was a lot of awesome stuff that happened, and
well, the awesome stuff that happened was it was Thanksgiving, and we did our Chandler Remington Thanksgiving griftathon. As you did a griftathon
without me.
Now, don't say that. They'll think that I didn't send it to you.
No, you did. You totally did. That's no.
They're like, wait a minute.
I'm really sad I missed it, but I'm really happy to be here today because I hear we're doing closing arguments.
Starting them.
Awesome.
It'll take a long time to get through them, but
yeah,
we're starting. Yeah. So just so you know, she did everything that we raised for Chandler for Thanksgiving, for all of the time and effort and energy she puts into this. She did get it.
I did, and thank you so much, you guys. That was incredibly sweet. Just, really, really helpful and wonderful, and actually helped me get my laptop fixed, which I really, really appreciate. So now I can be here with you all. It's too bad that I have like an 8-year-old laptop, but I'm gonna have to get a new one, and then I'll be in high definition, and I'll be streaming on my channel in the month of December. So look forward to some content from me.
That's so awesome. We're just glad to see you again.
I'm happy to be here. I missed you.
Well, we all missed you too, bee handler.
My blood moon. I'm so gangster.
You are.
That's my favorite thing.
Oh, that's why my mic sounded so hot, because it is. Let me turn down the gain just a little bit. There we go.
Bye, Franz says, get a real PC, ma'am. I would if I knew how to use PCs. I'm not very good at them. I might try. But I'm just familiar with Mac. I've been using Mac since I was like, 10? I've always had Macs. So, I mean, maybe, but it would require like some tutorials. I'm always happy to learn a new thing, but I mean, this works. So, just why fix, what's broken or what's not broken.
Oh no, the store-bought tteokbokki sauce smells like the crap they put in SpaghettiOs. Oh
it
no.
It kind of does.
No, oh no.
I had to add some gochujang to mine, and I had to add like chili. I had to like add a whole bunch of stuff to the sauce that I did.
Go down, just kind of bump down Wilshire, head into Koreatown, and get some real tteokbokki.
Okay, that's not bad. I mean, it's better than. Okay, I would love to go to Korea to just like so I could visit you and hang out, but I think that going to Koreatown might be the more economical option for the time being.
Yeah, for now, get some tteokbokki. Tell them to make it Korean style, don't Americanize it up for you. All right, well,
I can do that.
JKD Buck. No, the trying on the glove thing was not closing arguments. That's sort of one of those Mandela effect things. We've already done the glove thing. The glove happened at the end of the prosecution's case. That's where they had him try the glove on, was at the end of the prosecution's case in chief, before the defense started.
Right, and Cochran never said the word glove in that. Everybody quotes it as if the glove doesn't fit, but he just says if it doesn't fit, you must.
Well, that is the closing argument. So yeah, they actually had him try on the glove at the end of the prosecution's case in chief.
Right.
But we're episodes away from the defense's closing argument.
Well, I'm excited because I always love closing arguments. I think closing arguments might be a little bit more exciting than all of the forensic stuff, even though I love watching the back and forth, and I love watching excellent excellent defense strategy.
All right, well, let's jump right into it here. Before we do, though, some housekeeping stuff. 122 peeps, 58 likes. Again, half of you haven't done your job, and we are sitting on exactly 64,400 subscribers. So anyone else wants to subscribe, jump right in and do it now. Let's push it on up. Let's get on up to 65,000.
Subscribe. I know you have new people because there have been people interested in the Kowalski case. And I love that. And so for any new viewers who don't know me, hi, I'm Chandler Remington. I'm a paralegal from Los Angeles, California, and I'm very happy to meet you all. And for everybody who knows me, I'm really, really happy to see you because I missed you guys. I'm very excited to be here today. So
awesome. Well, we're just so happy to see you here too.
I know, and I'm doing 2 streams today. I'm going on Megan's stream later. She's we're doing a reading of one of the dependency.
Oh yes, that's right.
Transcripts, and I'll be on with Flux and Megan and a bunch of other awesome people. So that'll be really fun. I will
be sleeping soundly.
Yeah, we're gonna miss you. I really wish that you could come on, but it'll be like 4 a.m. for you, so
Yeah.
probably not the best time to be doing something like that.
No.
Although I do get up at 4 for streams. I usually do this morning. I got up at 5, hence my late appearance. But
well, we do have our like and subscribe poll up. So everybody hit that like button while I tell you about the like and subscribe poll. Then you can go over and take the like and subscribe poll. Like, subscribe, and vote. What's the best thing about OJ Thursdays? So far, 25% of you said it ending. That's the best thing about it. I'm surprised it's not more than that. 27% of you said the thrilling cross-examinations, and 48% have said Jeff and Chandler.
Aw, that's so nice.
Well, you're in luck because when this ends, when OJ Thursday ends, a new case Thursday will begin. We're going to be doing a new trial from beginning to end. We'll tell you about it at the end of the OJ trial.
I'm really excited for that.
It was Chandler's idea. So
it was my idea.
Yep. We're going to do it.
It came to me in a dream. Well, it kind of came to me in a dream. I fell asleep, and then yes. Well, you'll know later. We'll tell you the story. Maybe.
All right. We are going to bring this up, and we're going to start it. Again, this is our chill stream. So this is our MST3K style chill stream where we just sit, we talk to you, we listen to the closing arguments, and occasionally make actual real comments about the actual real argument. So we need to get our overlay in place. Boom, there we go. And the whatchamacallits, any super chats that come in, we'll read those as they come in because what's the point of waiting? All right. Present screen. Share screen. Prosecution. Yes.
I just wanted to remind everybody, super chats are not required, but if you want to see Doggo Cam, it is $100 to Doggo Cam.
We unleash the achievement. We do not put the dogs behind a paywall. We just unlock an achievement.
Exactly.
And this is the last day of the month, so we got something scheduled for tomorrow. I just don't know what it is. Oh, yeah, tomorrow is Friday, so it'll be Alec Murdaugh. The Alex Murdaugh sentencing was the other day. 27 years for the financial crimes. We'll be watching the sentencing with the victim impact statements and things like that. That'll be tomorrow. So there you go. Let's do it.
That'll be great because I'm fascinated by what's going on in that case. There's a lot of weirdness. Really.
There is.
Your take.
And speaking of weirdness, let's see how many, as you can sort of see them here, how many hourglasses that Ito has collected over the 9 months.
We are at that stage where the attorneys will have the opportunity to argue to you.
That is loud.
And I should let you know that previously
All right, there we go, folks.
Placing a time limit on the lawyers in their argument. Some of the factors that I considered in whether or not I should place a time limit on them.
He should have.
Was the quantity of the evidence that was produced, the conflicts in the testimony, and the complexity of the issues that you'll have to resolve. And after considering the length of the case and the nature of the evidence, I have decided not to place a time limit.
So he considered the length and the girth.
However, I have placed upon each side a limit of no more than 2 attorneys may argue to you for this part of the trial. Now, the purpose of the argument by the attorneys is to discuss with you the facts and the evidence that have been presented to you, to discuss the law that I instructed you on earlier, and the attorneys may advance theories based upon the evidence, and they may urge conclusions that are fairly drawn from that evidence. However, during the course of their arguments,
it's an opportunity for the jury to jump to conclusions.
That the comments and arguments made to you by the attorneys are not evidence. All right? Having said that, Ms. Clark, on behalf of the people or the prosecution, prepared to proceed their opening argument?
Yes, Your Honor, we are.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you very much.
The only time I've ever heard her speak.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Finally. I feel like it's been forever since I've talked to you.
It has been.
It's very weird to be in this courtroom next to you, seeing you every day, not getting a chance to talk to you. It's just very unnatural. And I have to tell you that
she's a woman and likes to talk.
As many years as I've been doing this, at this moment in a trial,
says the guy who literally does YouTube every day and talks for 2 hours.
I want to sit down with you and say, what do you want to talk about? Tell me what you're thinking.
Your hair. It looks better now.
I'm
glad.
Wait, what happened to
Glad she
Juror
got rid of the
165?
pro. Oh, I don't know. What
Ms.
happened?
Clark.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know.
I want to sit down. I want to talk to you. I want you to tell me, what do you want to know? You know, what do you want to talk about? Because that way I don't have to talk about stuff that you don't need to hear, stuff that you don't want explained, stuff that you're not interested in. And I can't. And I always have this sense of frustration. So I'm sorry if I say things that you don't need to hear or explain things that are already very clear to you. Please bear with me because I'm not a mind reader and I don't know. Let me first.
Yep, if
I
you
wanna take
gain
this
too many
opportunity to
subs too
thank you.
fast, they take
And I
some
wanna
away from
thank
you.
From the bottom of my heart.
Rude.
You have been through so much. You have made a tremendous sacrifice.
Yeah.
You haven't
9
seen
months.
your children enough. You haven't seen your family enough. You haven't seen your loved ones enough. And all of this in the name of justice, in the service of justice. Your dedication and your selflessness are truly beyond the pale. No one can say that any jury has sacrificed more for the cause of justice than you have. And I
That's
want
true.
you to know sincerely from my heart, I appreciate it. I speak on behalf, I know, of the people of the state of California. This was a tremendous sacrifice. Your selflessness and your devotion will long be remembered by many. And I thank you.
We're still talking about
No
it
one can
28 years
understand
later.
How great their sacrifice has been, how terrible the pressure has been, how awful it must be for you to have your lives kind of out of control this way, at the mercy of us taking longer than we should have, and you having to put your lives aside for longer than you should have had to do.
Yes,
I'm
Ralph, they were
sorry for
sequestered in
that.
a hotel for 9
I
months.
apologize for that. There's only one bright side.
With that
Two
TV.
bright sides. One, it's almost over.
They had TVs.
Number two,
I think it was limited. No, I don't think they
you
did. I
have
think
the
they had
assurance
movies.
of knowing that no stone has been left unturned. The defense has explored every nook and cranny of the
They
case.
did, you're right.
We have exhaustively tried to give you every piece of information that could possibly be relevant to answer the question we're here to answer. And in doing so, in the exhaustive examination and cross-examination of all of the witnesses in this case, and the exhaustive investigation and work that's been done, one thing is clear. This defendant has received the ultimate in a fair trial. And at least you know that. You have that assurance. Now, in the course of presenting all of this evidence, in this trial, just like every trial, some evidence has been presented to you that really is not relevant to answer the core question of who murdered Ron Goldman. and
Oh, no, that's
Nicole
not the
Brown.
core question.
And
The
it's
core
up to you,
question
the
is, did
jury,
OJ
to
do it,
weed
not
out the
who did it?
distractions, weed out the sideshows, and determine what evidence is it that really helps me answer this question. And it's kind of like the artist and the sculptor. And somebody went to him and said, well, how do you make an angel? Well, I take a piece of marble and I remove everything that's not an angel. That's what you have to do.
That
It's
is
not
nothing
easy.
like what Michelangelo
It's going to
said.
require a lot of focus and a lot of determination on your part because the sideshows may be very interesting. They present very important issues, very serious issues, but issues that really do not relate to who committed these murders. And they should be dealt with outside this courtroom because here now in this courtroom, we're here to decide who murdered Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown.
No, we're
Now,
not.
you as jurors, sit
You're
as
right, it's
judges
really
of
not
the
the
evidence.
question.
You're called the trier of fact. And as such, your job it is to be neutral and to be impartial as you examine
She's
the
on
testimony
drugs.
presented.
Oh,
In
The
this
fact called use
regard,
Marsha.
You're guided, just like any judge, by the law.
I think
And the
Darden
jury
should have done
instructions
this.
that were read to you on Friday is the law that you will apply to the evidence to determine the answers to the question that is posed here. Who murdered Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown?
Wow,
God
this
damn it,
is
it
so
is not.
bad.
The
This is
instructions
so
discuss a
bad.
wide range of topics. They talk about guidelines for the determination of credibility of witnesses, both expert and lay witnesses, and they talk about what the people are required to prove to establish the defendant's guilt. But they go beyond that, and they also tell you the frame of mind that you should adopt
The Goldman
when you
family.
look at all the evidence. And one of the first instructions that was read to you by the judge on Friday, if you
Oh,
recall,
he has a great
Dominic
mustache.
Dunn.
concerned your
Yeah.
duties as a jury, and it stated in part, you must not be influenced by pity for a defendant or by prejudice against him. You must not be biased against the defendant because he has been arrested for this offense, charged with a crime, or brought to trial. Now, of course, that makes sense. It's logical. And that means that we have to present proof to you. We can't just come in and say it's so. Why don't you get us
Say
to
it
get up
ain't
here and
so,
say it's
Marjorie.
I have to prove it to you with evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. So that makes sense. Now, the instruction goes on to read, you must not be influenced by mere sentiment, conjecture, sympathy, passion, prejudice, public opinion, or public feeling. Both the people and the defendant have a right to expect that you will conscientiously consider and weigh the evidence.
Yes, Sheck did get a haircut. I was going to point that
and
out.
reach a just verdict regardless of the consequences. In the course of this trial, you have heard some testimony of a very emotional nature. I expect that in the course of arguments, you're going to hear very impassioned speeches, fiery speeches, speeches that may stir up feelings of anger, sorrow, pity.
Not from me.
Although your feelings may be aroused, as would be natural and understandable for all of us. As the instruction tells you,
insert Marcia arousing people joke here.
Judges are to remain neutral and impartial and not be influenced by such passion or sentiment, no matter how sorely tempted you may be to do so. And this applies to both sides, both sides. Although the brutal and callous way in which Ron and Nicole were murdered may understandably make you feel sorrow, pity, even anger, it would be wrong to find the defendant guilty just because you felt sorry for them. On the other hand, although it would be completely understandable if you were to feel angry and disgusted with Mark Fuhrman, as we all are, still it would be wrong to find the defendant guilty, not guilty, just because of that anger and disgust. So as you listen to the arguments of counsel, please remember, when you weigh the evidence and you consider all of the evidence, remember that an appeal to passion and emotion is an invitation to ignore your responsibility as a juror. To be fair, we must examine all of the evidence in a calm and a rational and a logical way. And let me come back to Mark Fuhrman for a minute, just so it's clear.
Wow, just right out of the gate. Let's go to Mark Fuhrman.
When he testified here in this courtroom, saying that he did not use racial epithets in the last 10 years. Yes. Yep. Is he a racist? Yes.
Oof.
Is he the worst LAPD has to offer? Yes. Do we wish that this person was never hired by LAPD? Yes.
I'm sure you do.
Should LAPD have ever hired him? No. Should such a person be a police officer? No.
I love when she asks herself easy questions so she can look like a genius.
Yes. But the fact that Mark Fuhrman is a racist and lied about it on the witness stand does not mean that we haven't proven the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And it
just means that he probably planted evidence.
If with such overwhelming evidence, ladies and gentlemen, as we have presented to you.
Well, see, this shows you how badly Mark Fuhrman damaged their case. He was on the stand months and months and months before these closing arguments.
Did you do that before I started doing OJ with you? Because I would love to watch that.
I think right before.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we do OJ, like, I mean, I don't end up like going and watching OJ on my own, but like, I would just like to watch that part of the trial. Because I mean, it's a huge.
Go back and do it.
Yeah.
It was quite fun. You should watch it.
Oh, man.
But I mean, that shows you how big of a fuck up it was for them to call him.
Yeah.
And at least not to vet him.
The People versus OJ, the serialization of these events, actually, they did a great job at everything was like really the TV series. That part of it was really compelling. And I can't remember who played Ethel Bailey, but he did a fantastic job. But God, yeah, no, did Mark Fuhrman just screw up the entire, like, I mean, all of their hard work? It must have been devastating for them to have to take this huge L, which is honestly exhausting.
Well, I mean, he was one of their star witnesses because he found the bloody glove. He found the blood on the Bronco. He did all of these things. And this whole blow up was months and months before this happened. And
yeah,
that's how devastating it was. It's like, hi, jury. Thank you for everything. You're so awesome. You did it. Now let's talk about Mark Fuhrman.
Can I just say for Marcia, I find her incredibly disingenuous. Like the way that she's like patting her chest and like, I'm so hard and this and that. I can't stress enough how badly I think it went for them to pick a white woman to deliver the closing arguments. Chris Darden should have done the closing arguments. I'm sorry, but considering the composition of that jury, I just do not feel that Marcia was, I don't think she's delivering this well. She does not seem genuine. She seems like she knows that she screwed up and she's like apologizing for it. Weirdly, I don't trust her, and I don't think the jury did either.
And I mean, what the jury just heard was Did he lie on the stand? Yes. Did he lie about using the N-word? Yes. Is he a racist? Yes. Is he the worst cop that ever existed in Los Angeles? Yes. Should he have ever been hired? No. Do we wish we hadn't called him? Yes. All of this doesn't mean he didn't plant evidence, right?
Oh my God. It is just, I mean, it's your witness. It's your witness.
He did all of these things, but he didn't plant evidence because, why would he do that?
Well, I mean, I have to say defense counsel did an incredible job because they tracked down the woman who had done, I think that she had done some research about, she was going to do a documentary about police officers, and she had a conversation with Mark Fuhrman, and she taped him, using the N-word and saying all of these horrible, horrible things. And that came later in the case. And so if defense counsel had not tracked her down, this thing wouldn't have been blown as wide open as it was.
Yeah, there was two of them, and they both independently came. Like the first one, she had heard him using all these things and saying horrific things outside of a marine recruiting center, because she was like upstairs. I think she was a real estate agent or something, and she heard him, or bail. I don't know what the hell she was doing, but she did something other. And she heard him saying these things. She saw him on TV and went, "Oh my hell, that's that racist mofo that I heard a couple of years ago." So she called the prosecution. They blew her off, didn't answer her things. Then she called
really
the
should have
defense.
blown her off. They really should have listened to this lady. Oh my God, really? Wow.
So then she called the defense, and the rest is history.
Mark Fuhrman was the biggest screw up. I want to say fuck up of any. I mean, oh my God, Amber heard the bet on that one. It was really bad, really, really bad.
Well, she kind of looks like a seal here.
She looks so embarrassed, and she looks like the cat that ate the canary. It's kind of terrible. Marsha.
Well,
Marsha.
Let's continue.
Yeah.
You found the defendant not guilty in spite of all that because of the racist attitudes of one police officer. It is your duty, and it will be your challenge, to stay focused on the question you were brought here to answer. And the only question that you were brought here to answer: did the defendant commit these murders?
Finally, that's the real question.
In seeking the answer to this question, you look to all of the evidence presented to you by both sides now, by both the people and by the defense.
I've looked at OJ from both sides now.
That question. Because the defense has thrown out many, many other questions. They throw out questions about whether LAPD has some bad police officers. Does the scientific division have some sloppy criminalists? Does the coroner's office have some sloppy coroners? And the answer to all these questions is sure.
Oh my God.
They were all of our witnesses.
Wow.
So we've got all of the racists, all of the liars, all of the really shitty.
Look at Barry in the back, just don't you love Barry's posture? He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit this one out. She's we don't even have to do a closing.
and Darden just like, oh fuck.
Darden just looks like he's been
defeated.
He's just done. He's checked out. He's like, I know this is just over. Like, he can tell. He's been looking at this jury for weeks and months, and he knows. He just knows. He knows what's coming.
You gotta feel bad. So far, we are what? Only 10 minutes. Well, 10 minutes into the, and all she said is hi. We've brought in all the racists, all the liars, all the worst cops, all of
a terrible case.
The problem. We brought in all of the problematic forensic people. They've all made mistakes, but we should win.
I'm sure it wasn't a big surprise to you, but they're important issues. We should look into the quality control. Things should be done better. Things could always be done better in every case, at every time. There's no question about that. We're not here to vote on that today. The question is what the evidence that was presented to you that relates to who killed Ron and Nicole, what does that tell you? Does that convince you beyond a reasonable doubt? No matter how much more qualified or
you mean the evidence of the racist cop planted and the incompetent people collected and the other incompetent people tested?
Did the evidence come to you in sufficient quantity and convincing force to convince you that the defendant committed these murders beyond a reasonable doubt? Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you that we have more than met our burden in this case. Now, the defense has thrown out a lot of possibilities to you, the merest of possibilities. And a lot of them were just there to scare you. You heard Dr. Gerdes talk about it could be this, it could have been that. I see the validation studies. You know, kind of like reminds me of the doctor when you have to go in for an operation. They give you all this list of things that could possibly happen to you. Nevertheless, and they have to give you that warning, right? They got to tell you that because otherwise you cannot give an informed consent.
Why do you think they give you that warning?
I'm going to go
because they legitimately could happen.
If you really believe that all these horrible things are going to happen, no one have an operation. You wouldn't take the risk.
This is too convoluted.
You've got to tell me everything, no matter how remote the possibility. And indeed, you go and you have the operation and you're fine. And none of that stuff happens.
Except when it doesn't happen that way.
There's
someone out there going,
"Motherfucker, happened to me," in an effort to scare you away from the evidence. But we have done better than you could ever do.
Yeah, she sort of kind of did say informed consent is bad.
Because we have proven to you that nothing in this case did happen. We have proven to you that it was not contaminated. We have even proven to you that it was not planted.
No, you haven't.
And I'm going to go through the evidence and demonstrate how we have proven that to you.
Well, please do.
So why were these issues raised? Why were these questions raised? Well, they are all questions and issues that were raised as a distraction. They were roads created by the defense to lead you away from the core truth. And the issue that we're looking for the question for the answer.
So the fact they put a racist on the stand who was on a recording saying he would do whatever it takes to convict a black man who dates a white woman, including planting evidence, but we proved he didn't plant it.
I was just gonna say, I mean, this is one of the worst closing arguments I've ever heard. She's basically saying, "Now we put on a terrible case, and our witnesses were, dog shit. But and we know that we've lost." Your faith in, the entire LAPD and the entire system. And we know that the defense did a better job than we did, but, they were just trying to distract you. I mean, that's, how is that going to, no, I mean, this is ridiculous. Marcia, no, this is terrible. Also, how does she know that somebody on the jury didn't have like a family member or something who like went into surgery and then that like percentage, actually happened to that person? That's a terrible metaphor. You don't use that metaphor.
In fairness, Liz Bodds asked, well, what else is she going to do, though?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I really think that Darden should have done closing. Not that I know what his closing argument abilities are like, but...
No, he'll do it. They split it up eventually.
Okay, I just really don't like Marcia for this, but maybe it's better for her to start it and for him to finish it. I want to see Darden's skill with the jury. This is bad, Jeff. This is really bad.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Inflammatory distractions, but even after all their tireless efforts, the evidence stands strong and powerful to prove to you the defendant's guilt. Now, I'd like to show you a jury instruction that is very important. I think that both the prosecution and the defense
looks like the kid
agree.
from Wonder Years.
Who does?
Barry Shack with his new haircut.
The haircut.
Like the older brother. Not Fred Savage.
Dershowitz's eyebrows are just so... They always impress me.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Reasonable doubt. Okay, this is an instruction that we'll talk to you about. They're going to talk to you about. This is a real important instruction. It's at the real heart.
It kind of is, isn't it?
Every criminal
Pretty
case.
important.
Because it's a burden of proof that the people have. We don't guess anybody guilty. We prove
the jury
it
took this
beyond
one
a
to heart.
reasonable doubt, which is what we've done in this case. Now, this tells you about reasonable doubt. It's kind of a funny definition because it talks to you about reasonable doubt in very negative terms. It says that state of the evidence, which after the entire comparison, you cannot say that you have an abiding conviction. It's very weirdly worded. It's going to take you a while to go through this. So I'm going to go through.
That's another one of these.
pieces
You're
of it at
too
a time
stupid to figure it
try and
out.
Give you a little hand here. First of all, let me point out the first paragraph talks about the fact that it's our burden of proof. I think that
right there where
that's
Mike's
pretty easy.
pointing.
Now it talks about how reasonable doubt is defined. This is real important. It is not a mere possible doubt. Okay? Because everything relating to human affairs is open to some possible.
It's possible
imaginary
aliens
doubt.
could have come down
That's very
and
important.
murdered them. It's possible.
It's a doubt founded in reason. I'm going to amplify more on that with examples when we talk about the actual evidence in this case. But bear that in mind.
You're an
A
amplified
possible
moron,
doubt.
Marcia.
I have a possible doubt that the sun will
Morning,
come up tomorrow.
Beesh.
Morning,
Do I
Bush.
have a reasonable doubt about it? No. I have no doubt founded in reason that that's going to happen. Just for a very basic example. So think about that too. We're not talking about what possible doubt is. It's reasonable doubt. Now, the other part of it, it is that state of the case which, after entire comparison, the entire comparison and consideration of all of the evidence. Now, what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is you consider the defense case and you consider the prosecution case. You consider all of it.
This is 1995
You'll
magic
probably
marker
hear
technology.
from the defense multiple times. We don't have to prove anything. That's right. They don't. In every criminal case, when the people complete their presentation, the defense can say, no witnesses. We rest. Because they can sit and make the state prove their case without ever calling a witness. That's right. That's correct. But when they do, then you must consider the quality and the nature of the evidence that they have presented. That goes into the mix. That's part of your consideration. What kind of evidence did they present to demonstrate something to you, to prove something to you? If they try to prove something to you, their witnesses, their evidence gets evaluated by the same rules ours do. The same jury instruction applies. You will see a jury instruction in your packet back there that talks about how to evaluate the credibility of witnesses, both expert and lay witnesses. There is no distinction made in that jury instruction for defense witnesses or for people's witnesses. It's all the same. You determine their credibility and the relative convincing force of the proof by the same rules, okay? So that's the first thing to remember. When you look at everything, you look at all of it. What have they shown you? What have we shown you? We have the burden of proof.
You show me yours, I'll show you mine.
But you look at what they've shown you when you want to consider
Tit for tat.
what was proven to you.
Tits, whatever, tats, I'll show those. You know,
Tit for tit.
tits or tats, I'll see them both. You know.
Somebody in the chat said Marcia needed bigger ones for
Yes, I
to
saw
go
that.
better for her.
I saw that.
I don't know if I
Fun
would have done
fact:
it.
Comic Sans was released just before this trial. Shame they
Pieces
didn't
of
use it.
boards and exhibits everywhere in this courtroom.
Oh, Comic Sans.
All right, now, all I'm telling you, ladies and
Favorite of
gentlemen,
graphic
is
designers everywhere.
it's reasonable doubt and it's not possible doubt, and we'll come back to it again. But at the conclusion of all of our arguments, when you open up the windows and let the cool air blow out the smoke screen that's been created by the defense with the cool wind of reason, you will see that the defendant has
The
been
warm
proven
smell of
guilty easily
colitas.
beyond a reasonable doubt.
Cool wind of
Or
reason
to
in
put
my
it another
hair.
way, the evidence has conclusively proven that when
So cringy.
Detective Mark Fuhrman said he did not use racial epithets in the last 10 years, he lied. But
Again.
it's also conclusively proven that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
The more she
Hello?
I'd like to
talks
start
about
with the
Fuhrman, the
evidence
more
in
she's
this
calling
case with the
attention
timing. Okay,
to the
I
thing she
think that's
doesn't
the
want to call
easiest place
attention
to
to.
start. The timing on June the 12th.
It's bad.
Let's begin with a very brief review of the movements of Ron and Nicole, and we're going to start with the recital in the late afternoon. I'm sure you recall that recital for Sydney at
Yes.
Paul Revere High School. Nicole left the recital and went to the Mezzaluna restaurant near her home, along with her parents and some
Revere
friends
Junior
and her
High
children,
School.
Sydney and Justin. And she arrived at the Mezzaluna at approximately, I think it was 6:30 p.m. Ron
I'll be right
Goldman,
back.
who was an acquaintance of hers, a waiter at the Mezzaluna, was working that night but did not wait on her table. And when Nicole and her family left between 8:30 and 9, they didn't know that the simple act of dropping a pair of glasses would have the tragic consequences that we all know now that it did. Now, you recall at the end of the People's case, there was a stipulation that we entered into, and you recall that the judges told you that a stipulation is to be accepted by you as an undisputed fact. And the stipulation told you the following. After leaving the Mezzaluna that night, Nicole's mother called the Mezzaluna to ask about her glasses. That was at 9:37. Karen Crawford, the bartender and Sunday night manager of the Mezzaluna, took the call and went out to look for the glasses. She found them outside near where Nicole had pulled up in front of the restaurant, and at Mrs. Brown's request, she put the glasses into an envelope on which she wrote, I believe she wrote, Nicole Simpson will pick up Monday. That call lasted 2 minutes. It was also stipulated that at 9:40 p.m., Mrs. Brown called her daughter Nicole, and they spoke for 2 minutes. And in that last conversation before her
I
death,
bet Ron regrets
Nicole
taking them
promised
over to her
her
house
mother
when she
that
was
she
supposed to
would
pick them up on
arrange to
Monday.
pick up the glasses.
I don't think Ron regrets.
Now, those two
anything
conversations with
now.
Nicole's mother were a matter of stipulation. That's an undisputed fact. Karen Crawford testified that about 5 minutes after speaking to Nicole's mother, she got a call from Nicole. That would mean Nicole called her at about 9:43. Nicole asked to speak to Ron. He took the phone, and after Ron spoke to her, he asked Karen for the glasses. She gave him that envelope containing the glasses. And at about
You are absolutely
9:50,
correct.
10 of 10 that night, Ronald Goldman left the Mezzaluna restaurant. When he left, he was wearing the white shirt and dark pants that were part
This
of his waiter's
Islander.
uniform. And that uniform was later found by his sister, Kim Goldman, in his apartment, draped over the bedroom door. That uniform is here in evidence. So we know that Ron went home and changed clothes after he left the Mezzaluna at about 9:50. The other waitress in the restaurant, Tia Gavin, testified that it takes about a minute to walk from the Mezzaluna to his apartment. So even being a little generous, he got home by about 9:52, say. He changed, he freshened up because we know he wasn't wearing that waiter's uniform when he was found. And so it would be reasonable to infer that he got to Nicole's house with the envelope sometime shortly after 10. And when I say sometime shortly after 10, we don't know exactly what time, and I'm not saying that we do, but 10:10 or so would seem a reasonable amount of time to get freshened up, changed, and get over there, based on what we do know. Now that brings me to something else that I want to point out. In the case, as in every case, there is certain evidence that is introduced that is directly proving a fact. For example, in this case, Ron Goldman left
We call that
Mezzaluna
direct
at
evidence.
approximately 9:50. It's approximate time. Could have been a few minutes later. So we know that sometime before 10, he left. We know he changed clothes, okay? But the direct thing we know is that sometime shortly before 10, he left. We know he changed clothes because he was wearing something different when he was found. We know how long it takes for him to get home because we have a witness telling us that. What we don't know is exactly what time he left his house. We know he left his house in time to be murdered, and we'll talk about that shortly. And in time for him to be there with the dogs barking, we have to make inferences. Okay, we have to make an inference from the evidence that we know about as to when he got to Bundy. Now, you can draw an inference.
Because the neighbor's dogs were trained to
or you
bark
can
at a
draw an
black
inference
man
that
and
is
nothing else.
unreasonable.
Oh my God.
What we are required to do here, and what I must do, is draw inferences, that are reasonable. Based on what we know, when he left the Mezzaluna, changing clothes, freshening up, and I think Stuart Tanner testified that they had plans to meet at the Baja Cantina. He was going to get cleaned up to go somewhere. It's reasonable then to infer that he took 10 minutes or so to do that, change clothes, freshen up, and then go over to Bundy.
She looks like Dr. Zira from Planet... Oh, no.
And, excuse me, the witnesses that testified to
Dr.
the dog. As you may
Zira from
recall,
Planet
we
of the
heard from a number
Apes.
of them, and they were
Roddy
neighbors of
McDowell's
Nicole.
ape wife,
Now, as for the
chimpanzee
people
wife in
that
the original Planet of the Apes.
prosecution
She does.
presented on this issue.
I never
All
saw
these
Planet
people
of the
were
Apes.
people who lived very close by. All of them were people who were home
Your
on that
face.
night.
Let's
And all
not
of these
start
were
that
people who were
again.
not distracted
I've
by
seen
anything
both
else going
Dunes
on
now,
at the
Jeff.
time.
You said that
And all
Dune,
of these were
the
people
old
who did
Dune was a
not
good
seek
movie.
out
It is not. It is a
involvement in
terrible
this
film.
case.
It's really
All of
bad.
these were people who were found by the
It's a good
police
movie.
during
No, it's
normal police
not.
procedures as they went knocking around the neighborhood
tell you why
doors
some other time.
to find out if anybody heard or saw anything. And some of these people were disturbed by the police at 2:30 in the morning, at 5 in the morning. And these people just were summoned by the police to tell what they heard, what they saw. They didn't go out looking for their 15 minutes of fame. They didn't go calling the police and running after the detectives to try and tell them they knew something important so they could be on TV and become the latest sensation. These people were called upon by the police because they were there. They were near her. They were close to the condominium. They were within range where they might have seen or heard something, and so they were contacted. And so they were subpoenaed. They didn't ask to be involved. And that's a big distinction between our witnesses and the witnesses called by the defense on this issue.
What's the look on your face?
Now, the significance of the barking
The look
dogs,
on my
obviously, that
face?
it tells us
Yeah.
roughly
She
when
looks
the
like Dr.
murders
Zira
occurred.
from Planet of the Apes. That's
Not
funny.
exactly.
Compare? I want to see.
But it's
All
reasonable
right, just
to
a
infer
second.
again, reasonable inference, that the murders occurred either shortly before or during the time when the dog was barking.
Oh my God.
Now, the neighbors who testified to this said that
Are
they
you
had
mad
not
that I don't
heard
like
a
Dune?
dog barking so insistently
No, I'm mad that you haven't
like that
seen Planet of the Apes.
before.
I'll see it.
It really drew their attention. That's why they remembered it. It's why they
I mean,
woke them up
Dune,
or
the original
disturbed
Dune
them
was
or made
bad
them
enough for
concerned.
David Lynch to take his
Made them
name off
look
it.
out their windows to see what was going on because it was unusual. Which means that Nicole was not in the habit of letting her dog run around like that. Which means that if that dog is barking like that and she's not tending to it, she's already dead. Now, what did they say? The witnesses that we presented were very consistent in this regard. I'm going to show you.
All right.
You have a comparison? Oh, she has to be on screen though, because we're
Yeah.
close up on the defense now. I got to see it.
Oh no.
All right, Mr. Escobar, would you just briefly display that to defense counsel so they know which one it is we're looking at?
I mean, I was born shortly before this trial happened, so there are a lot of cultural references
All right.
that, you know,
The timeline
I just
board.
missed.
All right, proceed. Thank you, Mr. Escobar.
Classic films I haven't seen. I'll catch up. I've seen Blues Brothers now.
And we may have a problem with the court reporter. It's timeline board. I just had him show it
What
to you,
kind of
counsel.
problem?
Do you have a small copy of this? All right.
We're bringing down small copies. Can counsel?
All right. Why don't you proceed with your argument at this point? Let's compromise. Move it over here so we can all
Move it
see
up
it. Mr. Escobar, Mr. Wooden, would you move this back over to the standard position, please?
For those of you who aren't going to be able to see it so well for now, we'll move it back down and just a little bit. Okay.
All right,
Everybody see it?
1386, can you see that? 165, can you see that? All right, thank you very much. Ms. Clark.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to direct your attention down here. Okay. The first witness that we called was named Pablo Fendes. You may recall that he testified he was in his apartment on that night and that at approximately 10:15 to 10:20, he heard the insistent barking of a dog. He called it a plaintive wail. And the nature and sound of the barking that he heard made it sound to him like it was a dog in trouble, like something traumatic had occurred. And it drew his attention, made him think about what was happening, and he noticed it. He noticed it, and he noticed the time because he'd been watching the news. And so he tied the time to that event. And he testified it was between 10:15 and 10:20, approximately, that he heard that. We called also, and you see he's right here on the timeline, Mark Storfer testified as well. Now, let me back up. I'm sorry. Pablo Fendes was the one who lived behind the condominium, diagonally behind Nicole Brown, across the alley. If you'll recall, his windows, he had windows that faced the alley, and at one point, I think he pointed out where he was able to see. And he indicated that the barking seemed to come from the location of Nicole's condo. So he lived right behind her. The other witness who testified was Mark Storfer. Mark Storfer lived down on Dorothy. That would have been just south of Nicole's condominium. Mr. Fairler, do we have the dog board that we had showed with the witnesses where they lived? Is that down here? I'll get it. That's fine. That's fine.
I have no idea.
Defendant's whereabouts unknown.
Well, where was he?
Chicago.
We used it during the presentation of the testimony,
Yeah,
I think it
after
really
it killed
makes it
him.
a lot easier to remember the locations and figure out where people are in relation to each other if you can see that board. And then I won't have to explain so much.
I'm amazed how much better court audio is here than it is today. It's incredible.
Ms. White, this is People's Exhibit.
People's Exhibit 26, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know where that is.
All right. Here, the red house here that I'm pointing to is Nicole Brown's house. This purple house right here, south on Dorothy, that is Mark Storfer's house. And he testified, if you may recall, that he was just putting his little son to bed when he heard the dog barking. And he was concerned, and it drew his attention because he was worried that the dog was going to wake up his son. You know, I think a lot of us know what that's like. You finally get the baby to
Now,
bed, and then something happens.
she and Darden were allegedly knocking
so he
boots.
was very cognizant. He was very aware of the fact that dog was barking, and it was disturbing him.
She said,
He
like,
went
what they went through with the
upstairs
trial was
and
more intense than a
approximately, he
romance.
said 2 to 3 minutes after he heard the dog start to bark, went up and looked at his clock because he was concerned how late the hour was and why the barking was so loud at that late hour. He looked at his clock, and it said 10:28. Now, he said they always keep their clocks 5 minutes fast. So his clock really, this gets complicated, really said 10:23. Since he heard the dog start barking,
Well, it didn't
2
really
to 3
say
minutes
it, but it really
before
was
he looked at the
10:23.
clock, it was approximately.
Okay, now look, here's another thing. Sorry to stop it, but she's trying to explain how the dog barking indicated that OJ killed these people. And she's okay, it's facing this way. There's this one window. It's open. Oh, this is all really complicated.
Wait, so
Why would you say
talking
that?
are we talking about the neighborhood dog that went over to the house, or we're talking about
This is the
Nicole's
next
dog?
door. This is the next door neighbor's dog, I believe, or it may be hurt. I don't know. I think we're talking actually about about Nicole's dog.
If it's Nicole's dog, I think what she's arguing is that Nicole tended to the dog if the dog had been barking, and so if the dog was barking, it meant that Nicole wasn't alive to be like, "What is it, boy? What do you need?" Like, I guess that's the argument.
But I mean, it's like when she's saying, "Okay, this time we do," and then she's supposed to be laying this out and making it understandable for them to prove how all of this circumstantial evidence meant he did it. And the best she can say is, "Oh, this is all really complicated and confusing."
Yeah, she needs to pare it down. I mean, she doesn't need to say that he looked at the clock and his clock said this, but it was really that. Like, all she had to say was, it was 10:23 at that time.
Well, she certainly doesn't have to say that her own presentation and all of their own evidence is confusing.
No, she doesn't. I mean, then make it less confusing, lady. I mean,
Exactly.
It's your job to present this. You get one closing argument. This has been 9 months. You do this the right way, or you don't do it at all.
Sorry to disappoint you, JKD, but Cato was the very first witness we did. He was the very first thing we did after opening statements.
I watched a fascinating interview with him. He's Cato Kalin. He's kind of interesting. Yeah.
All right, let's hear her talk about how confusing her own evidence and closing arguments are for the jury to understand, which means the jury's going to go, all right, well, then we'll listen to something that's simpler, like, if it does not fit, you must acquit. We can understand that shit.
He heard the dog barking, and he was concerned, and it drew his attention because he was worried that the dog was going to wake up his son. I think a lot of us know what that's like. You finally get the baby to bed, and then something happens to wake it up. It's horrible. And that's what happened to him. So he was very cognizant. He was very aware of the fact that dog was barking, and it was disturbing him. He went upstairs, and approximately, he said 2 to 3 minutes after he heard the dog start to bark, went up and looked at his clock because he was concerned how late the hour was and why the barking was so loud at that late hour. He looked at his clock, and it said 10:28. Now, he said they always keep their clocks 5 minutes fast. So his clock this gets complicated, really said 10:23.
This gets complicated.
Since he heard the dog start barking 2 to 3 minutes before he looked at the clock, it was approximately 10:20 to 10:21. Now, he also lived very close. And what's important for you to know and recall about his testimony is that when the dog started barking, he indicated that he looked out his window at 10:23. A few minutes after the dog started barking, he went to see what was going on. And the source of the noise seemed to come from north of him on Bundy, which is, of course, the direction of Nicole's house. And when he looked out the window at 10:23, he saw no one walking down the street. That's real important. I'd like to ask you to try and remember that fact. Mr. Darden will discuss how significant that is when he speaks to you later. We also heard from
Why not tell us how significant it is while you're talking about it?
They were the next door neighbors of Nicole Brown. This is the blue house here. They live right next door. Now, on that night, Eva Stein had gone to bed shortly before 10 o'clock. And at some point, she indicated shortly after she fell asleep, she was awakened by the loud, insistent barking of a dog. Or she thought it might even be more than one dog because it was so loud.
I insist that you hear me.
She indicated that
so
shortly after that,
sounds like a bad novel. She was awakened by loud and insistent barking.
Her boyfriend, Louis,
I think she means incessant.
And she could tell that he came home because she heard the bell. So half hour after she heard the dog barking, he came home. And Louis Karp told you he came home at 10:45, 10:50 at the latest. Which means that she heard the dog barking also at 10:15 to 10:20. Now, and just to remind you, Pablo Fenbez's house is the yellow one indicated here on the board. So just across the alley behind Ms. Brown's condo.
So the dog was barking. Okay.
I'm done. What?
I mean, we don't know that she was dead then. She could have been in the bathroom. She could have been, watching TV. We don't know anything.
All right. Now, Louis Karp also told you something else. He told you that when he came home, he went into his garage and then he went out in front to get the mail. And when he went out in front to get the mail, he saw a dog in the street. And this was the time he indicated that he got home. When he got outside, he saw a dog running around in the street, barking insistently. A dog that he identified for you as Cato, Nicole's dog.
I love how she named her dog Cato.
Was prancing around in the street and acting in a very weird manner, and Mr. Karp was a little afraid of him and went back inside.
Was he a dog? Was Cato
Mr. Karp also told you that he saw a
man
walking
submission.
a dog.
Wait, I'm confused, Jeff. Can you pause this? Can we go back a little bit? Because I don't understand.
That at about 10.
I just don't understand. Wait, so she's saying he identified it as Cato, Nicole's dog. So are we saying that, was it Cato's dog or Nicole's dog?
It was Nicole's dog. Nicole named her dog Cato because the dog's name is Cato.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So they just, by coincidence, happen to have Cato Kalin living at OJ's house. And
No, not by coincidence. Cato used to live at her place.
Okay.
OJ was uncomfortable with Cato living with his ex-wife, so he let Cato live at his place for free to keep them separated. So he moved in with OJ, and then she got a dog and named it Cato.
Why did she name the dog Cato?
Because of Cato.
She named the dog after Cato.
Cato. Yes.
That is really. I did not know that. That's extremely weird. Go on. I'm just clarifying here. So the dog got out? The dog was running around the street? What?
Yes.
Was that what happened? Okay, I see.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Just clarifying.
Yes. That's weird, says people about other people who live in the shadow of the Hollywood sign.
Do we
know? I'm sure naming your dog after some dude you were probably humping is not the weirdest thing in your neck of the woods.
It's you don't really, why would you do that? That's so. But what kind of dog was it? Was it an Akita? I'm trying to remember.
I believe it was an Akita. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I recall that. Okay, got it.
I seem to recall people saying Akita.
Because without knowing that was the name of the dog, I thought she was saying it was Cato's dog. I got very confused, so I appreciate the clarification.
What if Cato the First was the killer? Cato
I don't
the first
think so.
of his name.
I highly doubt that. Dude was dumber than a box of hair. But anyway, go on.
All right.
10:30, he left his home and went out and took his dog for a walk. If you recall, he said that he waited to see the end of the Dick Van Dyke Show and then went out to walk his dog. That was about a little after 10:30. He told you of the route that he took, walking around the neighborhood, and he told you that at approximately 10:55, he saw Cato, Nicole's dog, at the corner of Dorothy and Bundy. And he told you that the dog was acting very strangely. So he went over to look at the dog. And when he did, he noticed that the dog had blood on its back paw, and the blood appeared to be moist. He crossed over to the east side of Bundy where he said the lighting was better. In other words, saying to you that the side of the street that Nicole lived on was poorly lit.
Oh my God, just
now,
that's terrible.
He noticed that the dog's paws had blood on it, but he did not testify that he saw any paw prints on the sidewalk. Does that mean that they weren't there? No. It means he didn't notice them.
Did the cops notice them?
The dog had blood on its paw.
Well, they would have been there.
And it had gone out of Nicole's home, and it had walked down the sidewalk. There were paw prints there to be seen.
All right. I've been told to read the super chat immediately. Thank you so much to Extremely Happy Simmer for sending us our very, very first super chat of the day.
Fabulous.
Extremely Happy Simmer. We are now $95 away from unlocking Doggo achievement.
Fabulous. I love it.
It's no Cato, but it's still a dog. She proved beyond a reasonable doubt that the dog was, in fact, barking.
Yes. Very big deal. I mean, it's just very Lassie. Just, what's wrong, girl? Did OJ kill some people?
OJ killed Nicole and Ron, what?
The dog is like, this is going to be the biggest trial that you've ever seen.
I want my 15 minutes of doggo fame.
Oh, yeah. That dog got totally famous. I hope that dog got lots of treats for alerting to this scene.
Just saying.
Yeah. I see it. I see it.
Just saying.
Doesn't see something. Doesn't mean it isn't there. It means they didn't see it.
Did the cops see it? Did they collect paw prints?
Wait. I love the idea of like the cops like planted little doggy prints on the sidewalk after the whole thing happened.
He crossed over to the east side of
Like
Bundy where
Bigfoot
they had more light. The dog stayed with Steve. Stayed and they continued to walk. But as they walked, at each house that there was a pathway, the dog stopped and barked, looking up the pathway. This dog was acting very strangely. Obviously, it had seen a very traumatic event.
How do we know that?
It simply, whether
How do
it
we know
actually
that
witnessed
the dog
the murders
didn't do that on a regular basis?
or simply came up on the bloody aftermath, it's clear the dog saw something. Now, when Steve got home, he took the dog into his courtyard, and he was able to see that there was blood on the underside of the belly, and there was blood on all four paws. But the dog was not injured.
Dun, dun, dun. He was just having a nice little drink. It tasted human flesh.
Suku agreed to take the dog from Steve for the night. And when you recall that when he took him into his apartment, the dog was acting so agitated and so nervous that he had to take it out for a walk, and he decided to let it perhaps lead him to where it lived. And the word
for today is anthropomorphize.
The dog pulled, and as they went south on Bundy, the dog pulled
Marcia
harder
Clark
and
is anthropomorphizing.
as they walked south on Bundy towards
Anthropomorphizing.
Anthropomorphizing the dog.
That led up to Nicole's house, the dog stopped.
We don't know that the dog saw a traumatic event. We don't know it didn't act like that all the time.
And Suku told you that had the dog not done that, he would not have looked up the pathway, and he would not have seen what he saw.
Okay, Lassie.
But as it was, he did. And because he followed that dog's gaze,
don't anthro the dog. That's furry shit.
One ever seen in his life, or hopefully ever will see.
I'm not doing it. She is.
It's kind of awful. I mean, God, imagine you find a lost dog and it leads you to bodies.
Jesus. Nicole Brown lying on the ground. It was midnight. So we know that the murders occurred after 10 and before midnight.
Mm-hmm.
That's the window that we know we have just based on what people observed.
Okay, fairly large window.
Now I'd like to turn to the defendant's activities for that night. And I'm going to show you how during the time period preceding the barking, during the barking, and for over half an hour after the barking, the defendant's whereabouts are unaccounted for.
Oh, the dog did it.
Let's start with Cato.
The dog left his cell phone
Cato
home
was a necessary
on
witness
purpose.
for us to call, but he was by no means a witness who was happy to testify for the prosecution, as you could tell. This was the defendant's house guest. Someone who started out as Nicole's friend and boarder, who found a better deal, certainly a cheaper deal at the defendant's estate. You'll recall that he met Nicole after her divorce back in 1992 in Aspen. And when he went to a party at her house on Gretna Green in during 1993 or the end of 1992, he asked if he could rent the guest house on that property, and she agreed. And they made an arrangement that he would pay monthly rent and reduce that monthly rent to some extent by performing babysitting activities for her 2 children. Now, he lived there with her in Gretna Green for almost a year, filling in as babysitter for the children, a friend to her, and the children as well.
Occasionally boning her.
Nicole moved in January of 1994 to Bundy. There was no separate home for him to live in, no separate guest house. And the defendant asked him not to go and move in with her. And he persuaded Cato to go and live with him at Rockingham for free.
That's a better deal.
That was a very good deal for Cato. As you may recall, I even asked him, how much money did that save you? You know, to stay in a place like the defendant offered him, with the availability of the pool and the jacuzzi, tennis court, living on that estate in kind of like a studio apartment, probably would have cost him $600 a month. What did he say?
Oh dear, the horror.
I think we wound up estimating
those are 1995 prices, people.
Staying there for free was about $6,000.
Oh God, that area now would be like $2,200 for that kind of space.
And the aspiring, but none too successful at that point, actor Cato saw also a career-wise move that was very good for him, because in the defendant he could have a connection.
Like every actor.
Picture here.
Extra Happy Simmer says OJ poked Nicole's himbo. I don't know what a himbo is.
He was not.
It's a bimbo who's a him.
To be a prosecution witness.
Oh no.
A male bimbo.
Oh no.
He certainly didn't want to come in here and give testimony that might prove damaging to him.
Wow, Jeff.
And you could tell from his demeanor, I'm sure.
Now I do.
He was not about to volunteer anything he didn't absolutely have to tell us unless he was cornered.
The dog?
I don't know what you remember it now. It's really been a very long time.
The Akita or the
during
dude?
his testimony, I brought out the fact that at the grand jury proceedings back in June of '94, I asked him whether he'd ever witnessed any fights between the defendant and Nicole. And when he was asked in front of the grand jury whether he ever remembered seeing them fight, he answered that he remembered only one. And I asked him, do you remember anything about the nature of that fight? And he said, no, only that it was one. Only that it was one.
Okay.
Okay.
And then when he came into court here, ladies and gentlemen, when I asked him why he didn't bring, we asked him what he meant by that one fight that he had witnessed. That was the 1993 call to Gretna Green that you heard on tape when Nicole Brown called 911 and the defendant was standing outside screaming, yelling obscenities at her and broke the door down. And she was afraid for her life. That was the fight he was talking about. When he answered to me in the grand jury,
to the press,
I remember one fight, and I only remember that it was one. Now, when he
gave
that
right before the trial, that
meaningless
911
answer,
tape leaked to the media.
No one at that time knew about the 911 tapes, and so he could get away with it until that became a matter of public record, and we all found out. And I couldn't confront him with that because I didn't know about it.
Well, that's whose fault is that?
He slid around. And would have continued had it not been brought to our attention by other means. But you see it, so at that time, he was safe.
That was something else I screwed up during this trial.
And you realize how only that it was one, and he's talking about that event. That gives you a sense of how much he wants to help Mr. Simpson. Now, although on June the 20th, when he was directly asked under oath about the past relationship of violence between the defendant and Nicole, he said almost nothing, as I've indicated to you. When he was interviewed by Mr. Shapiro, 6 days before that,
there are no time limits on the closing, which is why it goes for days.
When he was interviewed by Mr. Shapiro, as I pointed out during his testimony, he brought out the 1993 Gretna Green incident. He brought out the fight at the Jenners Christmas party in 1993.
The Genders Christmas party? Is that what she said?
When he was under oath in front of the grand jury, I remember
that was a joke.
Genders Christmas party.
Transgender.
Which genders? Chris wasn't married to a Jenner at this point. I wonder if that was a different Jenner.
The time that he spoke to me in front of the grand jury and the time that he spoke to Mr. Shapiro 1 week earlier.
The same Jenner. As in
and doesn't that alone tell you how reluctant a witness he was for the prosecution, and how much he identified himself and wanted to identify himself with the defendant's side.
So Cato didn't give them anything.
Now, after he spoke to the police, though, this is the position he finds himself in. So you understand why he had to come here and give the testimony he did. At the time he spoke to the police in the early morning hours of June the 13th, he didn't know that what he was giving was damaging evidence against the defendant. He only knew he heard thumps on his wall. That's all he knew. And the events that transpired that night.
This is the human Cato they're talking about now, people, just in case you were wondering.
It's so confusing. I mean,
the dog didn't testify to hear thumpings on the wall.
She doesn't have to refer to the dog by name. Like if she called it the Akita, that would have been, I mean, it's so confusing when she's like, you know, Cato and which Cato? Is it the canine Cato?
Yeah, now we've moved on to the human Cato. Yeah.
Can I just say somebody in chat said the Tarantino version of this would be good. I'd love to see Tarantino do OJ. That would be amazing. Oh my god.
It was called Django.
My cat's name is Django, actually. He's named after the movie Django Unchained. People always make jokes like, is he unchained? It would be funnier if it was a dog, but
just tell people you're in Seoul and you're taking the train back to Busan and see how many of those jokes you get. Train to Busan.
The train to Busan. Oh, I haven't seen that one either. God, so many movies.
You don't have to worry about that one. Don't see that one.
No, it's not good. Oh, okay. I have it on my list. I was like, Jeff lives there. I should watch that.
Yeah, it's the last one you should see.
There's a super chat from Turbo Tony.
There is. Turbs. What's up, Turbopotamus?
You gonna ring that?
Turbo Tony with a big old doggy there. What, if any, new info learned from watching the trial a second time years later? What, if any, new info learned from watching? Are you saying you've learned what, if any, was a thing in this, or what are you asking? What, if any, new info was learned? Not sure, but if you're asking what new stuff was learned. Again, the whole reason we did all of this for the last 52 episodes was to show you how great lawyers do great cross-examinations of witnesses.
I love how this is like Brandon levels of vague in terms of, like what's being said. But thank you, Turbo Tony. Now we are $83 away from Doggo Can.
And speaking of what, if any, actually it was F. Lee Bailey that popularized using what, if any.
Did he?
Yes, he was.
It's his fault.
50s.
God.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, back in the 50s, he kind of popularized that what, if any, way of getting in the evidence into cases,
50s?
And people like,
in the 50s. Wait,
Yeah.
so he was an attorney for what, 40 something years is what you're saying?
Oh my God, he was an attorney for 1 billion years.
He was from South Carolina, wasn't he? One of the Carolinas.
I don't know.
I know he practiced in courtrooms, in one of the Carolinas, because they went there during the pendency of this case in order to, I don't know if it was after, it was something having to do with Fuhrman, and he tried to make an argument to one of the judges.
He was born in Massachusetts.
They knew him there. Oh, okay. I know he practiced in one of the Carolinas courtrooms for a long time. Pretty sure.
He died in Atlanta in 2021.
Okay. I could be wrong. Could have been Georgia, maybe. But anyway, I would love to see F. Lee Bailey's. I'm sorry that I missed that. That would be great to rewatch.
Oh yeah, they definitely got to go back and watch the cool stuff.
I've got to see Fuhrman on the stand. Yeah, I wish we had been watching Fuhrman, but I think I came in a little late.
Yeah, because I'm going to assume you haven't seen the Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones Fugitive movie. The Fugitive, yeah, of course you haven't. Of course, I just assumed correctly. We'll see. That was based on an old TV show called The Fugitive. The one-armed man case. The doctor comes home, finds his wife being allegedly murdered by a one-armed man, and that's actually based on a real case of Sam Shepard, and F. Lee Bailey was Sam Shepard's lawyer in 1954.
Oh, I've heard of this, right? And then Larry David parodied that in Curb Your Enthusiasm when it was like, there was a one-armed man that was, playing chess with your father. Oh, that was really funny. Okay.
Yeah. So he was. Wait, no, he graduated. Okay. I missed it by a bit. He graduated from law school in 1960.
Okay.
Yeah, Sam Shepard had been convicted of killing his wife in 1954. And then when he got out of law school, Bailey, in 1966, successfully argued before the Supreme Court that Shepard had been denied a fair trial. And then he was acquitted on a retrial.
F. Lee Bailey coming in hot.
He also did Albert DeSilvo, The Boston Strangler.
And that's one of my favorite movies. It's also hilarious the way. Oh my god, we should watch that sometime. We should do like a watch party for The Boston Stranglers. So good.
Boston Strangler is hilarious.
The case, the movie. They did a movie about it, and oh god, I'm pretty sure like one of the victims was gay or something, and they're like, yeah, he was a, it's like the whole thing. The dialogue is really funny. You've got to watch it.
Yeah, and he defended Patty Hearst as well.
Damn. Okay. See, I didn't really know his career history, but I'm obviously
one of the
Dream
worst.
Team.
Yeah, one of the worst events of the Vietnam War, the My Lai Village massacre. He defended the lieutenant in that case.
Whoa! Wait, what did Kardashian do though? Because like I don't know what
he was just lawyer to the stars. He was like a celebrity lawyer guy.
Was he? He did entertainment law?
I believe so.
Because he had to reinstate his, like he wasn't a member of the bar anymore, like when this whole thing happened, but because he was a close friend of OJ, he actually reinstated his legal license so that he could be a part of this trial. But he was an entertainment lawyer, you said?
I believe.
Okay. All right. Just curious because like I don't know what he contributed to this case, really. Because nobody really knew the name Kardashian.
He contributed the Kardashian children and possibly, anyway.
To the world, he unfortunately.
Most, at least the majority of the Kardashian children.
Except for Khloe. Yeah, I know. We've been through this. I agree with you for the record.
Equality. You guys are so funny. Love you two together.
I love us together too. Jeff is my ride or die. I'm like, I always love doing OJ. It's like the least watched of, all of your streams, but it's my favorite. What did I say? What did I say?
You love doing OJ.
Oh, Jeff.
I didn't say it.
I can't. I love doing this stream with you all. But
there you go.
No, it's fair. It's reasonable. I get it.
Yeah.
I say things all the time. I have to put my foot in my mouth frequently.
Ooh.
Anyway.
Rower. All right. So going back here, let's hear the human Kato hearing knocking on the wall of
Tell
his
me you don't
little
have
bungalow.
a foot fetish. I thought your thing was noses.
I do not. It's noses.
No. Good. Yeah, you and Drax.
Feet are icky.
The time
Feet are
that he
icky.
spoke to me
Yes, they are. I hate
in front of the grand jury and the time that he spoke to Mr. Shapiro 1 week earlier. And it doesn't that alone tell you how reluctant a witness he was for the
Kardashian was a divorce
and
attorney.
how much he identified himself and wanted to identify himself with the defendant's side. Now, after he spoke to the police, though, this is the position he finds himself in. So you understand why he had to come here and give the testimony he did. At the time he spoke to the police in the early morning hours of June the 13th.
Okay, I have to tell y'all, Mads, how you doing, girl? Good to see you here. Says the Kardashians are a curse. For those of you that aren't aware, this gentleman right here is Daddy Kardashian. He's the progenitor of all of most of the clan, at least, possibly all of them.
Yeah, he made Kardashian a household name, unfortunately, which is why we have, the absolute scourge upon the earth that is the Kardashians now. Oh God,
yeah.
I love.
Chloe was the ugly fat one until surgery happened. Now she's just one of the hot ones.
I think Courtney's really cute because she's kind of like my height. No, but I like when we started doing OJ together. When we started doing OJ together, my favorite thing, like when the thing that made me know that like you were like one of my favorite people was when you were like, it's his fault, and I was like, what's his fault? And you were like, the Kardashians. He unleashed them upon the world. It's all his fault. And it is, unfortunately. Well, most of them anyway.
Yes, Bernice Conklin, that's why the Kardashians are famous, because of their dad. Because their dad was famous because of OJ. Well, this gentleman right here.
What he did, I know the one contribution that he had to this case that was really major was that when OJ, had the whole like Bronco chase thing, he had left a letter behind, and Robert Kardashian read it aloud to the media. So that happened, yeah.
That's kind of just about everything he did.
Don't do it, Juice. We love you too much. God. Anyway, yeah, so that was his thing. All right.
Let's continue.
18th. He didn't know that what he was giving was damaging evidence against the defendant. He only knew he heard thumps on his wall. That's all he knew. And the events that transpired that night. He knew they went out to McDonald's. He knew that they had gone through all the things that I'll point out later for you, but they went to McDonald's, confused. They had a burger, they came back. He went to his guest house. Mr. Simpson stayed outside. He later heard thumps on the wall during a phone call. At that point, he didn't know the significance of what he was saying. And he would surely never have told the police any of those things had he known what they meant. And so the problem was that once he told the police what had happened that night, he was stuck. He couldn't go back on his word. He had given them a detailed statement.
Yeah, BBLs are because of this trial.
And something vague that he could slide around with. He gave a very lengthy, detailed statement to the police because he was telling the truth. He didn't know any better than to tell the truth.
What?
From this trial, we got the race card, the N-word, lots of stuff.
Okay, she just said if Cato was smart, he would have lied.
Did she?
He didn't know any better than to tell the truth.
Well, she's insinuating that he was a hostile witness. Yeah. I mean, did they declare him a hostile witness during the trial? I'm pretty sure they did. I'm pretty sure they did. Am I wrong?
I believe you're wrong.
I kind of remember him being declared a hostile witness, but I could be incorrect.
I think you're incorrect.
Okay. Just, I'm going to look it up. But,
at the preliminary hearing and at this trial, he had to recount that same truth. And he had to tell you.
It's a thing, Ginger. Leave me alone, King Ginger. It's a thing. I like noses, okay?
Yeah, Jeff has
his timing.
We all have our thing.
Cato told us that he was on the phone with a friend when the defendant came out to the pool area near his door. And he was able to pinpoint that time with the phone call bill that he had. Because the phone call was a long distance call. The call was placed at 9:03.
Ito declared him a hostile
for
witness.
7 minutes.
Okay.
And when he saw the defendant come out to talk to him
on March 28th, 1995.
So it was about 10 after 9.
I knew it. I know my history. I know my OJ.
At 10 after 9, approximately.
All right.
And so we have 9.
Well, I think that's important to know
maybe it was
because she's talking about his testimony.
Out to talk to Cato. This is a very, very significant conversation that they have. I'm going to come back to this a couple of times. So here's the first time.
That's so LA, going to McDonald's in your Bentley.
That he had only $100 bills on him.
With $100 bills.
Cato if he had any fives for the sky cap. You may recall that. Asked him if he had fives. Cato went to look and he realized he only had $20 bills. So he gave the defendant a $20 bill, which the defendant took. Then the defendant told Cato he was going out to get something to eat. He didn't invite Cato. Cato invited himself.
The curse is foiled again.
When I heard that, I thought, what's wrong with this picture? This doesn't fit. If you're going out to eat and you only have hundreds, you need change, you're going to break that 100 when you go out to eat. Why do you have to ask Cato for fives? You've only got hundreds. Wherever you go, you can break it if you're going out already anyhow. So what's the point here? Now,
I don't know. What is the point?
Why is that? I'm going to come back to that. That's very significant.
I don't get it.
All right, that was at about 9:10. They left immediately and they drove to McDonald's in the defendant's Bentley. Did it strike you as odd that he'd take a Bentley to a drive-through?
Not in LA.
To McDonald's when he's got a Bronco? It's not like there's no other car.
Not in Brentwood.
Now, you've seen the picture of the defendant taken at the recital for his daughter, Sydney, earlier that night. And in that photograph, he's wearing black dress slacks and like a white polo type shirt and a black, looks like a shirt to me because you can see the seams in the sleeve and a collar to it with the sleeves rolled up. But Cato told you.
Yeah, waving hundies around at night,
10 after 9,
anywhere in the Los Angeles area is probably a bad idea, especially McDonald's, I would guess.
Well, not in Brentwood, though. Brentwood
so after the recital, the defendant changed clothes.
I don't know which McDonald's they went to. It depends.
And that's important, too. I'll come back to that.
They went down to Pico, maybe.
Cato had several occasions to notice
I just know there's a really good In-N-Out burger in Wilshire near Washington.
And during the time that they paid, and during the time they got change.
I know
and
that
he
one.
noticed that there were no cuts on the defendant's hands. or he didn't notice any
Right
cuts
across
on
the street from
defendant's
the
hands
George
to be more
Washington
accurate.
was a dollar store
And
place.
that's actually an important distinction.
But all the in and
You'll
outs are
notice
kind of
too, though, when you look
the
at the
same
photograph
level
of
of
the
good.
defendant in the recital, you can see his left hand. And you can see that as of the time of the recital, when he's posing with Sidney, there's no cut on the back of the middle finger of the left hand. And that's important.
Mm-hmm. There is no cut, but
Now,
there's a cut later
What's
after the murder.
probably even more significant than Cato's lack of observation of any cuts on the defendant's hand when they're in the at the drive-through lane is this. Cato wound up paying for the food with his own money, paid for both of them. He handed the defendant the money, the defendant paid, defendant got change back, and gave it to Cato.
Yeah.
Gave it to Cato.
It's Cato's money.
Wasn't the whole point of talking to Cato to get change for the sky cap, get fives for the sky cap? Okay, now
What's a sky cap?
you have another inconsistency here.
Taxi.
First of all, he
I
asked
guess. I
Cato
don't
to
know.
give him change when he's going out already, he can get it himself. Secondly, he has the opportunity to get change right there at the drive-through window, either take Cato's or break the 20 that Cato gave him, and he doesn't take that opportunity.
I would still give the guy whose money it was the change and let him give me the 5. I wouldn't be like, here's your change. You ain't, I'll take that 5. That would be fucking rude.
I don't understand why this is
Wanted to
significant.
indicate when they returned during the ride home, the defendant wolfed his food down while he was driving. Cato saved his. And
I have no
all of
idea.
these facts are going to be tied in at the end of
Which
this
Cato?
presentation. So I ask for your patience. Bear with me. I want to stick with the timing right now so I don't get distracted. When they got back to Rockingham, Cato got out and he walked towards the house, expecting the defendant to follow him. But when he got to the front door, he turned and he realized he's not here. And he saw the defendant still standing by the Bentley, watching him. And he had not moved. So as Cato told you, he took the hint, turned and went to his room. Now, why didn't the defendant just walk in the house?
You
Or
tell us.
if he intended to go somewhere, why didn't he just get back in the car and go? Either in the Bentley or in the Bronco.
Oh, yeah, McDonald's fries were just freaking
Why wait for
crack
Cato to
back
be out
then.
of sight?
Yeah, they changed the recipe. They used to fry them in beef tallow, and then they changed it to vegetable
Yeah.
oil.
I'll come back to it.
I want to
just
know which
want-
McDonald's they
let's
went
think
to. I'm
about it
really
for a minute.
curious because that kind of matters.
Now, as soon as Cato got back to his room,
And I'm sure
he
it's still
called
there.
his friend, and fortunately, the friend lived far enough away that it was a long-distance call, so we have his phone bill that indicates what time it was. And he indicated that he made that call as soon as he got back to his room. So the call was made at 9:37. So he left the defendant's presence at 9:36. And you can see here, at 9:36, the defendant was last seen standing in the driveway.
So what she's saying is that
From
the fact that Cato didn't see a
9:36
cut means the cut had to have happened after
Until
he left.
10:54,
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
the defendant's whereabouts
So he
were unaccounted
accidentally
for.
supported their narrative. Did
So
he
we have
explain
the
the
beginning
cut?
of our window of
No,
opportunity
he
at
didn't testify, never mind.
9:36. Okay, now I'd like to remind you of some testimony you heard about the Bronco. Back up for just a minute, talk about the car. Cato said the defendant almost always parked the Bronco on Ashford. And when I asked him when during the 6 months that he lived there, he could remember ever seeing it parked on Rockingham, he said that he couldn't come up with any answer. I did ask him if he'd seen the Bronco either when they left the house to go to McDonald's or came back, and he indicated that he didn't notice either way. He wasn't looking for the Bronco. But there was a witness who was out on Rockingham that night. He was out walking his dog between 9:30 and 9:45. That witness was Charles Cale. He was a neighbor of the defendants. And when he was walking his dog, he was a neighbor of the defendants. He knew where the defendant lived. And I think he indicated that he had even been on Mr. Simpson's property at some point. So he was walking his dog that night between 9:30 and 9:45.
Mm-hmm.
And as he did so, he walked down Rockingham. And he looked and he could see, I think he indicated it was 60 yards away, but he could see, that'd be 180 feet, that there was no Bronco parked on Rockingham when he was walking his dog, approximately between 9:30 and 9:45. Now, there are two inferences we can draw from this. Either one is reasonable.
I did too. I was in my second year of law school, third year when it finished.
Which is why he didn't see it on Rockingham. Or Mr. Simpson had already left in the Bronco by the time he walked his dog. Now, Mr. Kale also indicated that when he left his home on June the 13th at 7 a.m., when he drove down Rockingham, he did see the Bronco. And you notice it was parked at kind of a funny angle to the curb. Now, what that tells us then, we have two reasonable inferences, and I'm going to talk to you about this a little bit later. We have a jury instruction on direct and circumstantial evidence. And that jury instruction tells you that when you have two inferences, both of which are equally reasonable, one of which points to guilt, one of which points to innocence, you are to adopt the interpretation that points to innocence.
Yes, correct.
That is, if both of them are equally reasonable.
No.
Now, in this case, at the point that Charles Kale is walking down Rockingham and is walking his dog and sees no Bronco on Rockingham, since he didn't look down Ashford, it is equally reasonable that the Bronco could have been on Ashford as it is that the defendant had already left in the Bronco. The inference that points to the defendant that's less inculpatory, that is less incriminating, is that the Bronco was on Ashford. Let's take that one. Okay?
Okay.
So let's infer from his testimony that when Mr. Kale was walking his dog, the Bronco was on Ashford. What does that tell you?
I don't know. What does it tell us?
It wound up on Rockingham. That's where it was found in the early morning hours of June the 13th. No one's disputing that. The Bronco was moved. And the inference to be drawn from that is that the defendant was out in the Bronco and he moved it. But you don't have to rely on just that inference. We have more. And what we have two things. As you may recall, Dr. Baden was the defense witness pathologist. He testified that the defendant told him that he had gotten cut when he went on the night of June the 12th, as he was preparing to get into the limo, he went to get the cell phone from the Bronco. That tells you the cell phone was in the Bronco. I'm going to talk about how he got that cut a little later. The cell phone was in the Bronco. That's where he had to go and get it from when he was getting ready to get into the limo. If the cell phone was in the Bronco and he's using the cell phone that night, he was out in the Bronco. And we have the proof for you in the form of the defendant's phone bill.
So
Your
defense
Honor, this
counsel
is
can see this.
People's 403.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Okay. This is a little bit smaller. I'm going to hold it closer so you can see it. But this you'll have back in the jury room. Let me tell you right now, in case I forget, the exhibits that I use that I don't say a people's number for, you're not going to get those back in the jury room. So if you want to take notes or if anything will help trigger your memory from those that you want to make a note from, go ahead and do it because you won't have them again. Okay. Here's the exhibit that we marked during the trial. You will have this one back there with you. It indicates that the defendant made 2 phone calls on the night of June the 12th from his cell phone that we now know was in his Bronco at 10:03. Now, in terms of timeline and on that night, what this tells you is that the defendant was out in his car at 10:03. Now, at that time, he made phone calls to Paula Barbieri. You may recall we heard the testimony of I think it was Llewellyn Robertson of AirTouch, and she told you, she interpreted the record for you and what it meant. And she told you that the calls were not completed, but we didn't need her to tell you that. The calls to Paula Barbieri were not answered because Paula Barbieri was in Las Vegas. She was not at home, either in Florida or in Los Angeles. She was in Las Vegas at the Mirage. You recall we had a witness testify to that. She checked into the Mirage at 2 p.m. on June the 12th.
Or was it just a Mirage?
So she was not available to take those calls. Now, I think we have further corroboration for the fact that the cell phone was in the Bronco, in the fact that Alan Park, the limousine driver, testified that he saw, as they were loading up the limo, he saw the defendant go out towards Rockingham, out to where we know the Bronco was parked, once or maybe even twice. So there is further corroboration for the fact that he went and got the cell phone out of the Bronco just before they left. Now, those phone calls are very significant in terms of their timing, because you realize that at 10:03, when he's out in the Bronco and he's made those calls, that the murders occurred about 10 to 15 minutes after that. We'll talk more about the state of mind that he was in at that time. We'll do a little later. Now, Cato. Let's go back to Cato.
Did he talk to Paula?
He indicated that at about 10:15 or 10:20.
What was that?
And he's very approximate.
Did he talk to Paula
times.
Barbieri on
He's
the
not
phone?
looking at his
Did she
clock, and
testify
he
about
readily
that?
admitted that to you.
I
He made a phone
don't
call
remember.
to his friend Rachel Ferrara. And that was a local call, so unfortunately we don't have a phone record to establish exactly when it occurred. This is an estimate on his part. Now, he testified, and I'm sure you recall it, that during that phone call, and he thought it was about half an hour after he made the call, he heard those thumping noises on his wall, very loud. So loud and so strong that the wall he was leaning on shook and a picture moved.
Oh, and he thought it was
Right
an
in
earthquake?
the area of the air conditioner that hangs over that narrow, dark south pathway. Those noises got him so upset. He suspected that it was an earthquake. He also told you he had suspicions that it might have been a prowler. And so he decided that he would go and see what might have caused them. And he told Rachel, he was scared and worried enough that he told Rachel that if she didn't hear from him in the next 10 to 15 minutes, to call the police. Now, he may have said it half jokingly, but it's pretty clear he was worried. He was shook up. He was very shook up by those sounds that he heard.
Shooketh.
Which is why he kept coming back to the issue, and he kept trying to talk to the defendant about it. And Alan Park, the limo driver. Now let's talk about Alan Park for a minute. You remember, he was the young man who had never been to Brentwood before. So he decided to make sure that he wouldn't be late. And although he was not supposed to be there until 10:45 for this pickup to LAX, he left at 9:45 to be on the safe side. And you may remember that this was a witness who was absolutely neutral. Absolutely neutral. He was not going to strain to avoid answers. He was not going to make any effort to embellish anything. This was a witness who was just going to tell it straight and tell it honest all the way through, no matter who was asking the questions, myself or the defense. And he stood up there and he took the grilling for a very long time. I went back and I counted. The cross-examination and recross-examination by Mr. Cochran took up 175 pages of transcript in these proceedings.
Based.
Now, he told you that on that night, he was driving down Sunset. He made a right at Rockingham and drove up Rockingham at 10:22. Now, he looked at his clock and his watch many times that night. And the reason he did is very obvious. He's a driver. It's important that he be on time. It's important to him. It's important to his job. And this was an important job. I mean, he's going to drive for Mr. Simpson. You know, it's not just me, somebody like that, or somebody that ordinary average folk. It's important. He wants to do well. And he certainly doesn't want to be late, make Mr. Simpson miss his flight. So he's checking that clock. And at 10:22, he drives up Rockingham. And he's looking at the curbs to see the addresses because he's never been there before. And he wants to see 360 Rockingham. This is also logical. I mean, what do you do when you're looking for an address? You look at the curbs and you try to see where it is.
Oh, those were the days.
But when he did that, he saw no Bronco.
Was he looking for a Bronco or was he looking for a number on
right
the
there at the curb?
Whatever.
Do we have the picture?
I bet you
This
do.
is People 62A, Your Honor. Kind of looks faded on the. Yeah. Oh, you can see it, right? See that curb area? You can see there's a 360 there.
They still have numbers on the curbs in Brentwood
Now, as
today.
he was driving up, he said, I could see the 360 on the curb. Now, if he could see the 360 on the curb and you can see where the Bronco is right there, that big white car, he's not going to miss it. He's going to see it. If he's driving slowly enough to see the number on the curb and realize that he's hit the defendant's address, then he's obviously paying enough attention to see a big old white car there, and he didn't see it. So we know that at 10:22, the Bronco was not on Rockingham, but we know more because we know at this point, when Alan Park turned the corner onto Ashford, he told you he did not see any Bronco on Ashford either. So as of 10:22, that Bronco's gone and the defendant is gone. That's further corroboration for what we told you with the phone calls in the Bronco. He was out in that Bronco on that night. So he indicated that he turned right onto Ashford. He made a U-turn and he parked across the street from the defendant's home from the Ashford gate side. He got out of his car. Remember, he went and sat on the curb behind the car and had a cigarette, waiting for it to be time to start buzzing for the defendant. And when he got back in his car, he looked at the clock and he saw that it was 10:39. Now at 10:39, he decided to check out the other gate, the Rockingham gate, and see if that would be easier to pull into than the Ashford gate. Because remember, he told you he had that stretch limo, kind of hard to maneuver. So, what gate he went in and where he was, this was an important consideration for him. The logistics were not that easy with that car. When he drove down to the Rockingham gate, he told you that he pulled the driver's side window parallel with the driveway so that he could look into the driveway and see whether it would be easier for him to get the stretch limo up that side of the driveway because of the way it curved. And you guys remember, you were there, you saw it's a curving driveway. When he did that, the area where the Bronco was found on the curb just north of the Rockingham gate was well within his field of vision, but he didn't see it. Again, further corroboration. The Bronco was not there.
I'm not convinced.
Now, he backed up Rockingham, and he backed all the way up past Ashford and then made a left back onto Ashford.
I have reasonable doubt about the Bronco.
Into the Ashford gate so that the headlights would be almost up against the Ashford gate, I think he indicated. And he told you that he saw a 300 ZX, a black one, parked to his left on Ashford Street, just to the left or east of the gate. And Cato told you, that's right, that was my car. That was there. And you even see it in some of the photographs that we've shown you during the course of this trial. Now, when he pulled up facing the Ashford gate, Mr. Park told you that it was 10:40, and he looked at his clock. At that point, he turned off his headlights and left the parking lights on, and he got out to push the buzzer at the Ashford gate. He wanted to let the defendant know that he was there. He pushed the buzzer, he told you, a good 2 or 3 times, and he heard the buzzing and the ringing noise as he did that, but he got no answer. He was concerned because the pickup was supposed to be, he told you, for 10:45. Starting to get up there now, so he called his boss, and he wanted to ask him what he should do. And I have a board that shows Alan Park's cell phone record. And that was a very important cell phone record because that helps us to fix a lot of events that were testified to that otherwise would have been very approximate. With the help of his cell phone record, we have much more definite times, much more precise.
All right, Mr. Escobar, if you just briefly show defense counsel.
Are we doing 2 or 3 hours today?
Sorry, Your Honor.
What was that?
Exhibit number
Do you want to do 2 or 3 hours today?
149.
Thank you very much.
Just however long it takes to get through this.
Through what?
Through this. It looks like we got about 45 minutes.
You want to do it?
Hold it up close to you so you can see
Yeah.
it. Can you all see
There's a lot of closing arguments.
Okay, I'm glad I made tea.
All right.
We got to get through
He
this.
made the call to his boss at 10:43.
It's more interesting.
Unless chat doesn't want us here.
And when the call ends, Dale St. John.
If chat wants us to go away, then off we'll fuck. You know, it's up to the chat.
I always like more time.
After he placed that call, he told you that he got out to ring the intercom a few more times.
He called
So now
Dr.
he
St.
rang
John's
the intercom
Pager's
at
Lonely Hearts
10:40,
Club
no answer,
Band.
10:43.
And the
I
mother.
hope you
No
enjoyed
answer.
the show.
And he said he rang it a few times on each occasion. No answer.
Sergeant John Pager's
He
Lonely
noticed that there were no
Hearts
lights on
Club
downstairs and that there was one light on upstairs.
Band. Got my mother on the
He got
phone.
back in the car and he called his mother.
A great
And he
old
got his
police
boss's
song that
home
is
phone
far
number
too
and
often
called him
overlooked.
again
Oh,
at
please.
10:49.
Mother.
And you see that
Off the
call,
Synchronicity tape album,
we have a lot more
CD,
calls
whatever
than
you
that.
kids listen to
But
these
at
days.
10:49, he called his boss again. And he left a message
did.
because he got no
my
answer.
mother on the phone.
Now, when he left that message at 10:49 for his boss, after he hung up, he got out and tried the buzzer again. Now, this is the third time he's tried to get someone to answer that buzzer at the gate. The third time that he rang 2 or 3 times. And this third time again, he got no answer.
We're not done either.
Now, he also
Not by a long
testified throughout all these events, getting in and out of the car and buzzing.
That's
You guys can
funny.
sit. I'll come back to it in a minute. I'm going to wear you out.
Really?
That's it.
What, is there something naughty about it?
Thank you.
No. He's complaining about his mother's
He
on the
told
phone.
you also,
That was actually my mother's
if you
ringtone
recall,
before she
that
died.
During this time that he was out by the Ashford Gate, he was paying attention to who was there. He was trying to reach the defendant, but he was very focused on whether he could get somebody to answer the buzzer. On
The
whether he could
ex-wife's
get Dale
ringtone
St. John
was
to call him
Lily
back.
Allen's "Fuck
I mean, these
You."
were the things that were occupying
Nice.
his mind.
But I thought that was
That's a good
mean.
one.
So
He was carefully
I thought that was mean. So
concerned about this because he had to
currently
get to the
in
airport.
the past few years,
But
it's been
He was not listening
Rolling
for traffic.
Stone "Sympathy for the
He
Devil."
was not listening to hear if a
Oh,
Bronco
nice.
pulled up, and it wouldn't have been. He told you it would not have been significant to him if he had heard a car pull up.
I think
or a
Evil
car door
Woman by
slam. So
ELO
what?
would be good too. I was
He's
just listening to that
thinking,
this
I
morning.
gotta get somebody to the airport. He's not thinking what cars are driving by, who's here, who's not here. He just wants to get going.
By the way,
he's
during
late,
the Depp Heard trial,
and
I
he's
made a
worried
whole
about
play
that.
of songs.
So,
for
although it would have been
Amber.
nice if he could have told us that he heard the
Maneater.
Bronco pull up on Rockingham when it did, he just wasn't paying attention to
It's a
that.
good one.
And
Yeah,
so
that's
he can't
that
give us
wasn't
any
the issue
information on that.
at all.
We know the Bronco did pull up. We know it did because it got there. We know it wasn't there as of 10:40, 10:39 when he drove down on Rockingham, and it was there later that night.
Oh damn it! Now I want to go listen. I'm gonna listen to some ELO when I go to sleep.
I love ELO. It's so good.
All right,
so
back to the park.
good.
Now, after he tried the buzzer at 10, after calling his boss at 10:49,
Bring me down, Bruce.
he got out. It was when he was actually buzzing at that point.
Prost.
Let me back up for a second. He
God,
called
I've
his
now
boss
got
at
like
10:49.
albums going through my
He
head
got no
all at
answer.
once.
He went out to the gate and he rang the buzzer again 2 or 3 times
I used
and
to have the
got
best
no
music
answer.
collection on iTunes.
While
before
he
my
was at
laptop
the gate
died.
that third time,
R.I.P.
he heard his car phone ringing and he went back into the car. It was his boss calling him. That call came in. That last call came in at 10:52. And he indicated now he told you about the fact that his boss
Mr. Blue
called
Sky,
him.
what a great song.
And he
One
told
of
his
my
boss that
favorites.
no one had been
Me
home
too.
and he'd been ringing for a while. And he was very concerned because he was running late.
No band sounds like
Mm-hmm.
ELO.
Now, at that time, I asked him, were you seated in your car when you were speaking to your boss? He said, yes. Where were you looking? I was looking through the gate right into the driveway. Well, what is the driveway lighting like? What is it like in there? Well, it's not really very well lit. The play area down in front, I'm going to pull out a diagram of Rockingham in a minute and show you exactly what I mean. It was dark, though. There were very little light. There was a light over the garage, but it gave very little illumination, and it did not light up the south pathway area at all. So he sat in his car talking to his boss, looking
She is
straight through
way
the gate
over
and at the
detailing this.
driveway.
Well, it's important.
which is why it shouldn't be overly detailed like this. Just get the basic facts. Limo driver went there looking for it. Was on the phone, looking directly there, didn't see the Bronco, wasn't there, move on.
She didn't drag it out. But the problem is just because he didn't see the Bronco doesn't mean it wasn't there. He wasn't looking for it.
It's been a while since we went out and did the walkthrough at Rockingham. So you see the area that says play yard there, and Park indicated that area was very dark. He indicated also, as he was seated in his car at the Ashford gate, that he could not see the Rockingham gate from where he was seated. He indicated to you, you see where that line is drawn at the garage? He saw nothing below that line. His field of view was limited to what was in front of that line. And that's because of the lighting that was at the driveway. Now, when he told his boss about no one being home and it was running late, his boss said, well, sometimes he does run late. Mr. Simpson does run late. Why don't you look at the lighting in the, I believe he said the pantry area, because he usually watches TV there.
How the hell would a limo driver know where the
pantry is?
pantry
And he couldn't see any
is?
lighting coming from that area, and he told that to his boss. During this conversation, Alan told you that he saw Cato come out on the side yard where the arrow is pointing.
Hey, Anna, what's up?
Roughly in that area.
Anna, what's up, girl? Hey.
Towards the tree, the other tree, that one. And he was holding a flashlight. You recall he told you that? And at the same time, he said almost simultaneously, he saw a person approximately 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, African-American, wearing all dark clothing, walking at a good pace up the driveway. And he told you that he hung up within...
With the court reporter, please.
Ooh, we have an objection. Cochran's going off.
By the way, I kind of have a fun idea.
Hold on.
What's that?
So since I live in
Reporters
LA,
change papers, well.
I think it would be really fun if I went and I did kind of like a tour of the area where all of the events occurred, because I can just drive over there. It's really easy. If people are interested, because I'm going to be doing YouTube stuff. So
Thank you, Ron.
if all would like, if people want me to, I would be happy to do some tours of, famous places that murders happen.
Mr. Fairlow to hold off. I wasn't watching his arrow. I want to try and be precise if I can about where Mr. Park said he first saw this man.
All right, that's what the objection was. The objection was the arrow was misleading. They hadn't the arrow didn't apparently show exactly where he saw the alleged black man wearing black clothes in the darkened driveway.
So they screwed
late
up
at night
again.
So she's like, "Oh, the arrow. I wasn't watching where he was placing the arrow. So let's make sure the arrow shows where he actually saw him."
Well, considering their Mark Fuhrman screw up, I think it's a comparatively smaller one, but still not great.
Go ahead and use the arrow. I'll tell you where.
Probably the worst mistake ever made in any trial. Mark Fuhrman. Jeez.
All right. I believe it. Now let me say this, because I know I'm going to forget if I don't say it when I think of it now. If you have any questions about anything that is said by either myself or by the defense during argument as to whether or not it is accurate, you can ask to have the record read back. Court reporters hate me for saying this, but in a trial this length, you're probably going to need to have your memory refreshed about
what
something.
about a trial of this
it's
girth?
really important that you not, if your memory conflicts, if your notes conflict with what we're saying.
Girth is important too.
You dirty mind.
You've got to have that resolved. If you need to have the record read back to have that resolved, then do it. And if you think that something I have said has been a mistake,
you do that way better than me.
I'm trying to be very, very accurate.
Oh, you're
here.
fine.
But in case
I can kind of roll
everybody
my
makes mistakes, in case I make a mistake, have the record read back.
Roll my tongue.
I believe the testimony indicated that he saw this person approximately where the arrow is. And he saw him walk up the driveway and into the entrance.
He was literally walking up the driveway sign.
Now, he hung up within 30 seconds of seeing that, which means that, according to the cell phone bill, according to the cell phone bill, the call ended at 10:55 and 12 seconds. Approximately 30 seconds before that, is when he saw the man walk into the house.
I did have no idea how important those calls would be.
Yeah.
Immediately, as soon as the man walked into the house, the lights started to go on. They went on downstairs.
Well, that was the wrong one. That's
Now,
what I
Alan
want.
waited in his car, thinking that someone would let him in,
I think you did it.
but no one did. Now, if you recall, Cato said that he had gone out to that side yard to investigate the thumping noises. And when he saw the limo driver, he figured that the limo driver was already taken care of and that the defendant was
And by
buzzing in.
taken care of, he
So
meant
didn't worry about it.
murdered.
He kept on about his business, and he went down to that south pathway, if you recall,
sleep with
to
the
start
fishes.
looking to see what was going on back there. So Alan got out of his car and buzzed again. And this was now within a minute of seeing the man walk into the house, the lights go on. Within a minute of that, Alan buzzed again. This is the fourth time. This
woman
time,
is still
he got
talking?
an answer immediately.
You do
And
realize
the
she
answer
spent
was given to
20
him
minutes so far
by the
talking about
defendant.
5 minutes of actual real time.
The defendant answered and told him he'd overslept,
Arguably, I think it's important, but
and
that's
he'd
mostly
just
because I
gotten out of
haven't
the
seen
shower,
a lot of
and
the
he
things
would
she's
be down
talking
in a
about.
minute.
I'm learning things.
Now, Alan told you that the
Commercial.
man who he saw enter the house appeared to be the same size as the defendant and
Wonder
about
what
the
OJ's
same
saying.
height and weight. He would not stretch even one iota to draw the obvious conclusion
We
that
have
the
a lip
man he
reader in the
saw
house.
walking up the driveway was the defendant. Of course it was.
If
There
it
was
walks
nowhere
like an
else there that
OJ,
night.
looks like an
It was the
OJ.
defendant. Who else could
He's the
walk in
only
door,
black guy in
immediately turn on
Brentwood.
the lights,
So it's
and
got
then
to be
answer
him.
the intercom? I mean,
Oh no.
this is an easy, reasonable
It's
inference
true.
to
Brentwood
draw.
is very white. It's a
Easy.
very white area.
Nice bush.
But what's
Hey, don't shoot the
significant here
messenger. I'm just talking about demographics here.
is that he lied. Why did the defendant lie? Why, when he was just out in the driveway, walking into the house, dressed in all dark clothing, why, when he answered the intercom for Allen Park, did he lie and say, I've overslept, just getting out of the
What's bad
shower?
about that?
We know it's not true. We know it's not true.
That's a good point. Why would he lie to the limo driver?
Why was it
Did
important
he lie to this?
for him to make Allen Park believe
Chandler.
that he'd been at home?
Ask him the important question.
And I think we all know the answer.
Actually, I
to
just
that
hit it with a
question.
beer can and had to think of a reason why I would do that.
Because he hadn't been at
If you
home.
must know.
Like an
Because he'd just come
obnoxious
back from
sound.
Bundy.
That's a good question. Why
let's
would
go
he
back
lie
to
to the
Cato
limo
for a
driver?
moment.
Like, who cares? You know.
Why
it's
would he
like-
tell the jerk? Why would he
Let's
tell the
concerning
truth to
those
the
thumps
limo
and when they
driver?
happened. Cato said that he hung up from his call with Rachel pretty
Why not?
quickly after he heard the
I mean,
thumping.
unless he's just a
How,
compulsive
He
how
only
liar.
many
made it for
times,
you.
Chandler,
2 to
has
3
someone
minutes.
sent you a message or made a phone
Now,
call you didn't
with
want to take,
Alan's
and you're like,
cell
"Oh, sorry, I
phone
was
call,
asleep and
Bill,
I just woke up."
we
When
can
you
be
really
very,
was
very
like, "I don't want to
precise
talk
about
to this
when that
fucking
was.
person."
That's true. I do lie
He
about things like
indicated
that very
he went
frequently.
out
I've
to
probably done that to
investigate
you.
the noises,
So I just
hung
think
up
you're
with
right.
Rachel, went out to investigate 2 to 3 minutes after he
That's
heard
a
the
fair
thumping.
question.
Alan told you he saw Cato and the defendant I'm saying the defendant. He said the man that looked like the defendant. You understand. I'm talking about what we know based on all of the evidence. But it was him. 10:54, he saw Cato, approximately.
The dog or
maybe
the
he lied
person?
Because it was at the same time he saw the
Good
defendant.
question.
And he hung up 30 seconds after seeing him walk in the house and after seeing Cato on the side yard. So at
She should have said-
10:54, Cato was out in the side yard.
She
Hearing
should say
the
Cato
thumping noises
Kalin
2 to 3 minutes before
and
that
not Cato Kalin.
means that he heard the thumping on his wall
Or the dog.
at 10:51 to 10:52.
Lucci and I agree it's not evidence of murder. But, you know, it's a little sus. I can see why she pointed it out.
So what we have, about 2 minutes after the thumping, the defendant was walking into his house from the driveway,
What was the thumping?
Him going over the back
and
fence,
Cato out in the side yard.
allegedly.
In other words, we
Oh,
have the
okay.
thumping and Cato walking out and the defendant walking out around,
His big
At the
ass
same
tromping
time.
around.
and the
Pretty
thumping
giant dude.
happened very shortly. What is it? Within half an hour of the murders. And the defense would have you believe, ladies and gentlemen, that the defendant's appearance on the driveway just 2 minutes after the thumping on Cato's wall
It was Chumbawamba.
is a coincidence.
I know. They got knocked down, but
The
they never
defense
got
would
up
have you
again.
believe that the thumping and the appearance of that glove, the defendant's glove, were unrelated events.
The gloves are sus, though.
And the thumps themselves.
Well,
just
in
think about
fairness,
that. Regardless of
Cato
where or
told
how they
Mark
happened,
Fuhrman, "Oh, I heard some
just the fact
thumping
that they
around the
happened
back wall
shortly
there."
after the murders,
And
at
Fuhrman
the
said,
defendant's
"Let me
house,
go
and
check
just
that out.
before
I'm
the
not going to
defendant
tell
walked up his
anybody I'm
driveway
going
in
back
dark
there to check
clothing,
it out, but I'm going to go
like
back
the
there
dark
all by
blue glass
myself
set
and
out
check it out. I'll
that
be
Cato
right back."
described.
Oh, a
He did-
glove.
You just put those
That did
facts
happen,
together,
yeah.
and you realize what has happened. The defendant came back from Bundy in a hurry,
Amazing.
Ron
They found
Goldman
one
upset
glove
his
at the
plans.
crime scene.
and
One
things
glove
took
at
a
the
little
murderer's
longer
house.
than anticipated.
Murder.
He ran back behind the house, that dark, narrow south pathway. You all saw it. You were there in daytime, but imagine how dark
Phrasing.
it is at night.
Let's not talk about dark, narrow south
That
passageways,
dark, narrow
please.
south pathway.
I said
If
let's
he
not
could
do
get
that.
rid of the glove, the knife in that dirt area in the back. You recall back behind the guest houses, there's a dirt area. It's just all dirt, not very well tended.
The knife was back there?
But he was in a hurry.
No.
He was moving quickly down a dark, narrow pathway, overhung with trees, strewn with leaves. And in his haste, he ran right into that air conditioner that was hanging over that south pathway.
Allegedly.
And running into that air conditioner caused him to fall against the wall, making the wall of Cato's room shake.
Okay.
This house is
You recall
rocking.
that air conditioner.
Don't
It
bother
was hanging
knocking.
low.
Come on
You had
in.
to stoop to get down under it.
Great
And if you're
Stevie
in a
Ray
hurry
Vaughan
and You're
lyrics.
not looking where you're going in that dark, narrow pathway. You can see how it can easily happen, how someone in a hurry can do that. And it was just as simple as
Yes.
that. Simple common sense tells you that the thumping, the glove, and the defendant's appearance on the driveway almost immediately thereafter are all part one set of events, all connected in time and space.
Okay, wait, where did they find the
You
knife?
don't need science to tell you that. You just need reason
I don't think
and
they
logic.
did.
She mentioned
You should
the knife.
know.
I should know.
Said you-
I'm gonna
said you
Ladies and
may have
gentlemen,
put it
we're
in
going
the
to
dirt.
take our
because it would be really
recess for the
stupid,
morning
just like,
session
oh, I
at
murdered
this
somebody. I'm just
time.
gonna put the knife in the
Please
alleyway.
remember all my
Behind my
admonitions
house.
to you. Do not discuss
All right,
the
we got
case
like
amongst
20 more
yourselves.
minutes.
Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been actually submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess until 1:30. All right.
And juror number one better not let his
All right,
wife
let the record reflect
do
that
anything
we've
on
been
social
rejoined by all the
media.
members of our jury panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah, that's been controversial, hasn't it?
All right,
I've been
Ms. Clark,
following it.
Are you prepared to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank
All
you.
right. you
She
may
was
resume.
furiously writing
afternoon, ladies and
handwritten
gentlemen.
letters and mailing them to her friends.
All right. When we left off, I was talking about the
They found the knife like in 2016 or
occurrence
something. It
of
seems like.
the thumping, the gloves appearance, the gloves dropping on the
But then they
rock,
ruled it out
south
that it wasn't
pathway,
the- so they
and
never
the
found it.
defendant's appearance on the driveway at within a couple of minutes of each other. Now, while Alan Park was speaking to the defendant on the intercom,
I keep hearing
at that
Alan
time,
Parsons Project
Cato,
every time she says
who
Alan
realized
Park.
That, who
I think you're just
wasn't
thinking
worried
about
Alan being
music.
left outside, went over to the south pathway and looked down the gate. Can we get 66D back?
Well, that sort of is the one of the theories.
Orient yourself because it's
that,
hard just talking about this.
He was
in the
past the
abstract.
knife in a briefcase that sort of disappeared at some point.
Maybe, but they never found it. It was never,
Can we
included.
back
So
out
the
just
fact
a
that she's
little bit
talking about
more?
it, I don't know
A
why
little
she's
more?
talking about it.
There we go. And the south pathway, if you recall, is at the bottommost edge
crow flew
below
by
where
and
that
dropped the
area
glove.
marked
That's a good
garage
theory.
is. You might recall. And he said that he went over to that area, looked down there, went through the first gate, went as far as the second gate, but that flashlight was very dim. And he was worried and he was scared and he didn't want to go any farther. So he looked
'Cause
down there,
Cato
but
was
it
a
was
big
dark
pussy.
and he didn't want to go any farther. He said that he could not see the portion of the pathway that was right outside the wall of his room where he'd heard the thumping. It was too dark. And he came back out without going actually any farther on the pathway. When he came back out, he realized that Alan Park was still waiting outside the gate. Now, this is after Alan had spoken to the defendant on the intercom. And when he realized that the defendant had not yet buzzed Alan in, he went and he let him in.
Well, yes, both parties' closing
Now, let me
arguments
ask you
were
this.
longer than the
Why didn't
deliberations.
defendant
The deliberations
let
were only
Alan
about
Park
4 hours.
Drive in to the driveway. Why leave him
Insane
sitting out
for,
there at
for
the
a
gate?
trial of this length.
Why make him wait outside? because the defendant was frazzled, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just saying there at that time and now.
And he needed to buy some time.
It's not a common sight.
Time to wash himself up, wash off the blood, change the
so he
clothes,
did take a shower,
and
is what you're
compose
saying.
himself to appear normal.
Did you find blood in the drain? Because I'm sure you looked at the drains.
They did, and there was.
So he bought himself that time, and he did not let Alan in. And when the defendant came downstairs, he had changed clothes. No longer the dark clothing that Cato had described him in earlier that evening. He was wearing
Duncan Idaho, who may or may not be biased given the name. Thank you so much for the super chat. Says I'm way behind, but Dune 1984 was a great movie. Maybe it takes reading the book to fully appreciate it, and definitely has some David Lynch charm to it, but it's one of my favorite comfort movies. Agreed.
So you love Dune, Jeff?
Oh yeah.
I'm so sorry that I don't. I love watching your favorite movies, and I let you know, like when you give me.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say the movie was my favorite.
Okay.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. Okay.
Great might be pushing, but no. But again, Duncan Idaho has a point here, and again, he may be biased given his name. It may take reading the book to fully appreciate how good the '84 Dune movie was.
Okay, well, maybe so. I think it was very convoluted, and it was a box office bomb. The budget was more than it grossed, and so I mean, David Lynch was so embarrassed that he took his name off of it and turned it into an Alan Smithy. Which I don't know if you know this, but in Hollywood, if a director doesn't want to be associated with a film, they'll say that it was directed by Alan Smithy, which is a pseudonym. So he Alan Smithied the whole thing. He was like humiliated by it. He never got over it. He won't talk about it. If people ask him about Dune in interviews, he refuses. He was like absolutely traumatized by that experience. It was so bad, Jeff. I don't know how anybody could like it. I'm sorry, you guys. I know
we'll talk about
Dune. I appreciate and respect
why.
that you like Dune, but I just don't like it. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you why it was a good movie.
I made the effort. I suffered through it. It was awful.
Later,
I like Sting. I like Sting. So, okay, anyway. Thanks, Duncan Idaho, for the super chat. We appreciate you.
Yes. Later, not now, but I'll tell you probably why Dune was '84 was a good movie.
Maybe I'll read the book. I'll rewatch it. I like the new one. $77 to Doggo Cam, I think, right?
I don't know, something like that.
You guys could still make it under the gun. Okay, let's do it.
Thank you so much for that.
I'm chatty.
And carrying a garment bag. You remember that Louis Vuitton garment bag that's here in evidence.
Oh God, now I have to pause it again. We're not gonna get sidetracked by this, but Silent P.S. says, how can it be a great movie if you have to read the book to understand? Because it is such a in-depth movie. It's a great movie if you've read the book. It was made for fans. I mean, the movie is so, I mean, all of the language in it is so other than anything that had ever been in any movie up to that point. I remember watching it Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when I was 14 when it came out in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually gave you a glossary of terms, like a printed glossary of terms that had all of these strange words on it, which I thought was hilarious because they give you this glossary of terms to read in a dark movie theater.
That's funny. They should have done the same for Clockwork Orange with all the NADSAT. I mean, I think you do have to read a Clockwork Orange to appreciate and enjoy the Kubrick.
See, exactly the same.
I mean, maybe, like, especially if you want to understand the language. But the problem with it is that it was so elaborate and so expensive. I loved Sting's G-string, though. That was hilarious. Yeah. But there was also just, there's so many things objectionable about that film. I really...
Alan estimated that the defendant came downstairs dressed like that, carrying the garment bag about 5 to 6 minutes after he spoke to him on the intercom. I think Alan Park's words were a good 5 minutes. Could have been longer. This was an estimate by him. But before the defendant actually came down, Cato went to let Alan Park in the gate, let him in, and he immediately told Alan about the thumping noises he had heard. He asked him, did you feel an earthquake? The same thing he asked Rachel Ferrara, if you recall. She told him she hadn't. Alan said the same thing. My feet. I didn't feel an earthquake. Now, Cato was clearly upset, clearly distracted and upset by that thumping noise he had heard.
Because he's a big pussy.
Fact, as you recall,
he hadn't found out his friend got murdered.
Twice. Once before he let Alan in, and then a second time after he let Alan in. Because he had the conversation with Alan Park, asked him about the earthquake, if he'd felt it, told him about the thumping noises. said he told him he thought, or he was thinking anyway, that it might have been a prowler. And after he let Alan in, he felt safer, and he went back to check the south pathway again with that dim flashlight, and didn't get any farther than he did the last time, and still wasn't able to see as far as the area of where his room was, and it was still very dark back there, and he gave up. But so Cato was concerned enough to check that south pathway twice, talk to his girlfriend Rachel about it, saying, call the police if you don't hear from me. Talk to Alan Park about it. And he talked to the defendant about it. The defendant came downstairs and he started talking to him. Did you hear that? Did you feel an earthquake? I'm really worried. I heard this thumping on my wall. I'm really concerned about this. He's really worried about it. And what does the defendant do? The defendant never went out to the south pathway to check what might have gone on back there, to check for the sound of the source of the thumping. The defendant never called West Tech Security, nor did he ever tell Cato to call West Tech Security. The defendant never called the police, nor did he tell Cato to call the police. In fact, he left without even setting the alarm and had to call Cato from the airport to tell him to set the alarm, something he had never done before. Now, having heard about the thumping noises from Cato, hearing Cato's concern about it, how Cato was trying to figure out why that happened or what was the source of it, and being very worried about it, knowing that he was going out of town, his daughter Arnell staying on the property and would be there alone with Cato, he did nothing to check on the source of the thumping. He did none of the things you'd expect someone to do under those circumstances. That is, someone who didn't already know what caused the thumping. But you see, he did. He knew. So, of course, he was unconcerned. He knew it was no prowler. Certainly, we knew it's no earthquake, because he knew the thumps were caused by him bumping into the wall. And so he didn't have to be worried that Arnell was going to be in danger, or even Cato in danger, or his home in danger, because it was not a question for him. It was something he knew about. And he acted like someone who already knew what the source of those sounds were. Unconcerned. Now back to loading up the car. Alan and Cato described how they loaded up all the bags, all except one. You may recall that there was testimony about a small dark bag that was on the edge of the driveway by the Bentley. And Cato, as they were loading up the bags, offered to go and get that bag for him. I'll go get that for you. The defendant said, no, I'll get it. And the testimony was that all of the bags were loaded by either Cato or Alan Park, except for that one. And after the defendant walked towards it, after saying, no, I'll get it, after he walked towards it, no one ever saw that little black, dark bag again. Nor have we ever found the knife the defendant used, nor have we
Nor will you ever find the knife, because he didn't do it.
Found the shoes that he wore during the murder.
Oh, wait.
And it's so typical.
What do you mean it's so typical?
So common. They get rid of the murder weapon, they think that's it. Can't get me. Home free. But you see, as you've seen, it's not that easy. Evidence was left behind. So we don't need the murder weapon, because we have much, much more proof than that. Now, while they were loading the bags, Alan, as I told you before, saw the defendant go out to the Rockingham gate, where we saw that the Bronco was parked. Now, I referred to this earlier, that the defendant told Dr. Bodden that he'd cut his hand while getting the cell phone out of the Bronco. I'm going to show you why that does not explain all of his blood in that car. And I'm going to show you that he did not receive that cut on his finger from the cell phone. Now, the defendant stood in the foyer talking to Cato for a few moments. Can we get a photograph of that? And that's when he dripped blood. You see the little marker in that photograph. But after he came downstairs, the testimony went, he never went upstairs. Cato stood with him Cato was talking to him. Cato went inside the foyer with him, went towards the kitchen at one point looking for a flashlight, you may recall, because Cato was asking the defendant for a better flashlight to go and look down that south pathway. Cato was standing by him, but the defendant was moving around the cars, getting things loaded up. But no one ever testified that he went back upstairs. And I think that it was Cato's testimony. I think Cato only testified to going into the house with the defendant once, and that was to get the flashlight. And they had also a conversation at that time about setting the alarm when Cato said, I don't want to set the alarm. I don't want the responsibility. I don't know the code. And the defendant said at that time, okay, I'll set it. And then he forgot and called him from the airport.
Okay.
Now, Alan Park indicated, I think, that he saw the defendant go in and out of the house a couple of times, but he never brought any more bags out. He only brought one bag out with him, and that was the garment bag as he came downstairs the first time. That was the only time he saw him bring a bag out. But Alan Park was busy loading the limo, and he was not watching the defendant carefully. Cato was hanging by the defendant. Cato was asking him, talking to him about the thumping, and he was trying to get his attention about something that he was very concerned about, because he was going to be left on that property alone with whatever caused that thumping noise. Cato didn't know. So he was talking to the defendant. He was asking for the flashlight, and he was talking to him about setting the alarm. And so Cato was the one who was more carefully tracking where the defendant was going. And Cato talked to him about what I told you, the flashlight and the alarm.
This is so pedantic.
Yeah.
She's really dragging it out.
Now, the defendant left.
I told you.
When he left, as you know, he didn't set the alarm.
Like opening
While he
doors
was
to
in the
rooms,
limousine,
there's nothing there, and she's looking
He asked
around
the
for like
limousine
70
driver to
minutes.
turn on the air conditioning. He complained repeatedly of being very hot. He rolled the windows down. Boy, it's hot. Boy, it's hot. You have the weather report, and it'll indicate to you it was a cool night. The defendant kept complaining
Dun,
about
dun,
being
dun.
hot. Man, I'm hot. Rolled down the windows, turned on the air conditioning. I asked Alan Park, were you hot that night? No. I asked Cato, were you hot
Who
that night?
cares? What does this
No.
have to do with
It
anything?
was
I
a
don't
cool
know.
night.
So he murdered them because he was hot? Marsha,
I
what are you
probably
talking
would.
about?
Now, I
mean,
said
it
I'd
doesn't
show
make
you
sense.
that the defendant did not get that big cut on his middle finger from that cell phone when he went to get it from the Bronco. Let me show you something.
Show us something, Marcia.
You recall the testimony that blood was collected from the bathroom upstairs. That's just off the defendant's bedroom.
Correct.
And the blood
OJ's
was
daughter
found
also was there on
found
site.
Basically in between the sink and the shower in the defendant's bathroom. The defendant was bleeding in his bathroom when he was cleaning and changing his clothes.
His daughter from
Obviously.
another marriage.
That was before he went down to the limo, ladies and gentlemen. Before he ever went to the Bronco. He already had that cut by the time he got downstairs. He got it long before he went out to that Bronco to get that cell phone. So since we know he was bleeding upstairs in his own
Nice
bathroom,
foreigner blast there.
and before he went down to the limo, how come there weren't any blood stains on the staircase? Obviously, he didn't fly. And just as obviously, he also bled downstairs. I show you that foyer picture. You've seen that quite a number of times with the blood spots on the floor. So he left blood downstairs as well. There are two possible reasons. We didn't see photographs of blood spots on the staircase. Number one, they were there and they were missed. Seems doubtful because it's a light carpet, light colored carpet. Blood should show, but it's possible. Or two, the cut temporarily stopped bleeding. As you may remember, Dr.
Oh my
Huizinga
God.
testified that a cut
It's been the
will
longest 20 minutes of my
bleed,
life. Oh, I'm sorry.
clot up,
Marsha.
The longest
bleed.
10 minutes of my
And I'm
life.
sure that wasn't news to you.
Marsha,
I mean, that's
Marsha.
life experience that's common to all of us. You cut yourself, you'll bleed for a while, and then maybe your hand will be still, and then you'll re-bleed if you
I'm
exercise
surprised
or
we
you
still have
rub against
170
something,
people
you
here
irritate
watching this
somehow.
bore fest.
Re-bleed?
But in any
Re-
case, by the time the
re-bleed?
defendant
Really?
got downstairs with the garment bag and started loading up the limo, the cut was temporarily sealed. Now, here's the interesting thing about the blood trail on his driveway and the blood in the foyer. When you take into account the blood in the bathroom, doesn't it make sense that he actually reopened the cut while he was moving around getting ready to go?
I don't
You
know.
know you have the blood in the bathroom before he gets down to the limo. So he
Look
was
at that
already
honking.
bleeding.
So weird.
You know that you don't have blood spots in between the bathroom and the foyer. So at some point, the bleeding stopped before he left his bedroom. But you do know that you have more blood downstairs. You have blood leading out to the Bronco. Now, Alan Park told you that he saw the defendant go out toward the Rockingham gate as they were preparing to leave. And you know that the defendant told Dr. Bodden that he went out to the Bronco to get his cell phone from the car. Now, although we don't know for a fact based on photographs,
1995 cell phone.
Did not receive that cut on some razor sharp cell phone. It certainly does make sense that when he went out,
But it was a Motorola Razr, I bet.
He opened the door to the Bronco, and his knuckle grazed the well of the door handle, reopening the cut. You gonna have the Bronco door?
No, but you can have a picture of it. Oh wait, we lost our. Oh, when we threw up the zero pic, we lost our overlay. There we go.
You see that little?
Now it'll be funny.
Picture yourself at the door at the car, okay, and you're up to the driver's door. What hand do you use to open the door?
Your dominant hand.
Especially one like that, where you have to push the button in to open the door.
Yeah.
Using his left hand. In which case, this middle knuckle is going to graze that door.
Yes.
In which case, a cut that has just temporarily sealed seconds or maybe minutes earlier is going to get irritated and rebleed.
That's the most reasonable thing she said all day.
Now, this is just common sense, but
sure,
when you open the car door, obviously, you need to use the handle. When you close the car door, you don't. How do you close the car door?
With your butt. I do it with my butt.
Very simple.
Lucky car door.
I close most doors with my butt. It has a lot of force.
So by the time
lucky
he
doors.
Opened the door, before he reached in and got the cell phone,
saucy this morning, aren't we?
Bleeding again. You have him bleeding before he comes down to the limo up in his bathroom. You have him going down to the Bronco and opening the door. But either way you look at it, he's already bleeding before he gets the cell phone. And that's shown to you by photographs. Now consider this possibility. He opened the car door, grazing his knuckle on that door, reopening the cut. And after getting the cell phone out, walks back up the driveway, dripping blood. Walks into the foyer, talks to Cato about getting a flashlight that's better or stronger than the one he's got. Talks to him about setting the alarm, and while he's talking to him, he's standing in the foyer.
Probably.
All right, he's standing in that foyer. Can we get the close-up?
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
All right, now you see those two drops down to the left of the number 12? It's kind of faint on this picture. You're going to have the pictures back in the jury room, and I think they'll be better and clearer for you than this is.
Wow.
Nice.
Those are big drops.
No comment.
Those are big blood drops, folks, not the kind you see from that little slice that Dr. Bodden showed you on the defendant's finger. Now, we've all been living in this world for a while, and you know that when you get big drops of blood, that's from a big cut. You're not going to cut yourself on get a little slice, like almost looking like a small slice on the inside of that finger and drip blood like that. It just makes, this is common sense stuff.
So
it's very logical.
Where did it come from then?
Those drops came from a big cut, and we're talking about this cut.
From a big cut?
On the middle finger. Now, did the defendant notice at that point that he was bleeding? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe he did. Put something small on it, get ready to go, let's go. But in the rush of getting ready to leave, Cato, who's worried about a burglar back there, Alan Park, who's worried about getting to the airport on time, no one's paying attention to Mr. Simpson's hands. His finger is not the foremost thing that they're worried about here. Now, about the blood on the outside of the car door, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not saying that the blood could only have gotten on the well of that door handle at Rockingham.
Forgive me for interrupting you. Let me see. Counsel, the sidebar with court reporter, please.
The fuck are you talking about, Marcia? When the fuck are you going to wrap this up?
No clue.
All right. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you to step back into the jury room for just a moment. The record should reflect that the jury has withdrawn from the courtroom. Counsel, as I mentioned to you at sidebar, the reason that I interrupted Ms. Clark, and Ms. Clark, forgive me for the interruption, but while I was
being bored,
taking my notes here on your argument, I noticed that the television camera hand along the defense counsel table, and Mr. Cochran did a close-up of your client taking notes. And it's not appropriate for the television camera to be going along sidebar close enough that one can see what people are writing in their notes, and that's not appropriate. And I thought it would not be necessary to tell the television coverage that that's not appropriate. But apparently it's necessary to tell them that it's not appropriate. And it's a very flagrant violation and intrusion into the attorney-client privilege. And I'm inclined to terminate the coverage at this time. All right. So, Mr. Bancroft, I'm going to direct you to turn the camera to the seal, and the television coverage is terminated.
All right, then.
Well, holy shit.
Okay, that was abrupt.
Well, there you go. Judge Ito. Just saying, off you fuck.
So that was because
fuck people.
What? Because OJ was taking notes, and it wasn't appropriate to put that on camera, or?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that that the defendant was not allowed to take notes.
No, the camera's not allowed to show what notes a violation of the attorney-client privilege.
Oh, so wait, they were zooming in? I didn't see
Park
that.
was worried about getting to the airport on time. No one's paying attention to Mr. Simpson's hands. His finger is not the foremost
apparently the
thing
cameras are.
that they're worried about here. Now, about the blood on the
this
outside
part
of the
right
car
here.
door, I want to make one thing clear.
So it's naughty court
I'm not
TV?
saying that the blood.
Yeah, so they're saying that was a violation of the order, so off you fuck, camera.
Wait, how did Ito know that they were zooming in on that, though?
Because he's probably watching the TV feed or something.
Huh, okay.
Things just like
I didn't realize that they were able to do that in 1995. Okay, that was a really abrupt ending. Jeez. I was not expecting that.
Well, let's see how it starts let's see how the next
Ladies and
one
gentlemen, my
starts.
apologies to you for those interruptions, and my apologies to Ms. Clark for having interrupted her train of thought there. A couple of things happened that I needed to deal with immediately, and I apologize to you for the disruption in the thought process. We will go through at this point until 5 o'clock, and then we'll take our mid-afternoon recess. And however, I realize that since we're having extended hours.
Okay, so I guess he just panned the camera up and yelled at the camera peeps for a while.
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks.
So that's 2 hours of way to kill her mojo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that amount of mojo needed to be killed. So again, this is the problem I have with him. It was the same thing that they did during opening. They just rambled and meandered around, and Darden's opening was the most uninspired opening I've ever heard. He was just like mumbling through. He was just like mumbling through and talking, just kind of like, I don't know what's going on. No passion whatsoever. Then Marsha brings up explaining how DNA evidence works. Brought up Jurassic Park,
right?
Which had just come out in the theaters.
So she does that in closing?
No. I'm just saying that's the same problem they're having during closing. It's just rambling. She's getting to way too much detail. And again, you can create a situation, the old situation where you can't see the forest for the trees.
True.
Just back up. I mean, the whole driver thing could have been done in 5 minutes.
It didn't have to be that long. It's like I said, it's like she's opening doors and there are like 2 things in there and she's waving the flashlight around for, an hour, showing you every little inch and every square detail of it. It's like, we get it. Let's move on. She's, she needs to simplify. So I don't think that she's she's not terse enough or efficient.
Yeah. Yeah. And, jury gets bored.
I mean, it's easy to criticize her because, she is doing a lot of things right. Just unfortunately, that has an impact, and it's the most important closing argument she's ever going to give in her life. So she's got to get it right, and she really messed up on a couple of. But honestly, I mean, I really think that with Fuhrman, it was like They really screwed the pooch on that one. So
Yeah, well, I mean, like, yes, it's just, what else is she gonna do? She's got to get out of. She's got to get ahead of the Mark Fuhrman thing. But that was a weird thing to do. It was like right out of the gate, especially when you're setting out a timeline.
The time to do that was before he testified. So they made major errors, and that there was never, no matter how. Let's say this was a perfect closing argument for Marcia, they were screwed. It was not going to go their way, unfortunately.
No. Oof. Yeah. Well, we'll pick up her testimony, the remainder of the afternoon's testimony, next Thursday.
All right.
We're winding down, folks. Just a couple more weeks, and then we'll be moving on to other things. All right. Let's see how we ended up here. 179 sadists or masochists, I guess. I guess we're the sadists.
Oh wow, you guys stuck around.
166 masochists that like to put up with that.
I think we put on a great show, personally. I like what we do. I think that there should be a bigger audience for this, but I guess because it's not happening right now and it's a retrospective, I can see why people would be like, yeah, but you're missing out if you're sleeping on OJ. Just saying.
The OJ, we've got closing arguments are going to go for a few more weeks, and then the verdict takes a very, very short time, and then we're going to move on to a new trial. 176 people left their YouTube running. Yeah, pretty much. Thanks, guys, for doing that. But 166 likes. Let's see here. The like and subscribe poll was like, subscribe, and vote. What was the best? I need to get like some. Sorry, my mind was wandering. Just went down ADHD alley here. I need to get like some soundproofing here in front of me. So I get shouty these days. Echoes. Like, subscribe, and vote. What was the best thing about the OJ Thursdays? 22% of you said the thrilling cross-examination. 28% of you said it ending. and a good solid 50% said Jeff and Chandler.
Aw, so sweet. Well, I love us. I think we're that. Wait, what percent?
50.
Oh, you guys like us. I like that. I'm glad to be likable. I mean, Jeff invited me on to, to co-host OJ, in what was it, February? And I was very honored, and I was brand new to YouTube, and this has been I've enjoyed our Thursdays. I look forward to them very much.
There's more where that came from.
Yeah.
And Resist Impulse, thank you so much for what may be the last super chat of the evening. Got a philosophy dude as my torts professor, 800 pages and like 100 cases for the final. Any advice?
Oh yes, actually I have advice. This is something that I learned.
What's your advice?
Okay, this is something that I learned, and it's something I'm going to do in law school. What you have to do for your final is you have to read what your professor has written, and you have to write your final in the style of his writing. You have to adapt it. Figure out how he writes and write like him. You will get an A, I promise. This was advice that was given to me on, well, not to me personally. It was on a Reddit forum. And basically the advice is like, you study how your professor writes, and if you write in their language, in language that they use, they will like that very much. So as long as you get things accurate, make sure to echo their personal writing style. So find whatever your professor has written, read it thoroughly.
That's not wrong. That's not bad advice. You look for catchphrases, things that they used. For example, and that was the thing in my constitutional law class. My professor, who was a big shot guy, he'd written a book called I think it was called To Unchain the Dogs of War, and I was talking to one of the upperclassmen, going, "Oh my God, what do I need to do to pass Professor Firmage's con law test?" He said, "Just say the president does not have the power to declare war as many times as possible," and it worked. Look for the catchphrases, look for things like that, and again, any type of stylistic things.
And opinions also, like points of view, perspectives, basically just, flatter him with his own way of speaking, I guess. Trust me, it's something that, use it. See, try and figure out a good way to, to finagle that into your final.
Well, Patricia Andrews says, play Name That Tort. No, literally, that's the thing. Danny on from Danny on Direct and we had the same torts professor. Tommy Torts, we called him.
Tommy Torts.
Tommy Torts. And that was kind of, he would do like certain things. One of them was like, for a third of the recovery, name that tort. or he would do for 1/3 of the recovery, what argument do you give to the 6 ignorant slobs who are now become like bus stop people?
Or the 12 ignorant slobs, or however many ignorant slobs.
So yeah, just look at the elements of a tort. What are they? You have the duty, the breach of the duty, the damage, and the causation. Just look for that. If it's a multiple choice, get rid of the answers first. Process of elimination, then guess if you don't. There you go.
Anyway, I've never used that advice, so it could go either way. But I like, if you use a combination, just I hope that you do really, really well. Best of luck on your final.
And again, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I'm still not exactly sure how I graduated from law school, and somehow I passed the bar. So I'm probably not the best person. Like, I literally had one professor. It was my North American Free Trade Agreement law class. It was right after NAFTA came out, and it was the spring semester. And spring in Utah is gorgeous. They're in the Rocky Mountains. You got to do. I want to go play around a golf over like the next block over? Do I want to go for a motorcycle ride up the canyon? Or do I want to go listen about NAFTA? And I missed so many classes. I went back when it came time to study for the final. And Professor Porras, she says, I thought you dropped my class. Nope, I'm still here. He's like, all right. So yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask. Patricia Andrews also asks, who actually gets Jeff's packages in Sarasota, Florida? It's a mail forwarding service. Everything gets sent there. They say, you've got mail. And then I say, okay, send it to me. And then they send it to me. So yeah, it's a mail forwarding service. Resistant. Okay, we just good luck with that.
Yes.
So glad I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Let us know how it goes.
And no, the final thingy coming in is Lynn Barry with the £4.99 super chat. What's the £4.99 super chat? I got to go over here and peek because they don't show up here.
It's so close, Doggo Cam.
It's a dancing thing.
Like $67 away. But you guys, thank you so much for the
no, we're like $35, $35 away from Doggo Cam.
Oh,
but
really?
we're at the end of the show. Yeah.
Well, I never said I was good at math, so yeah, no, we're at the end here. True.
So what's going to happen tomorrow is we're going to be watching the Alex Murdaugh sentencing on the financial crimes. He pled guilty to all of them, got sentenced to 27 years, and we'll be watching the sentencing with all of the victim impact statements. Some fiery advocacy for the family of the maid that died from lawyer Eric Brand, who I think is kind of a dick. But he did give a very, very good speech. He did give a very, very impassioned speech. A little bit over, we'll talk about. I think he's a dick. You can follow him on YouTube, but I mean, follow him on Twitter. But
he reps the Satterfield family.
Yeah,
yeah. The sons of Gloria Satterfield, who unfortunately passed away.
He's kind of a tool, but he did give a very good argument.
Blandy.
So we'll be watching that, and Alec Murdaugh, he gives a big apology, etc., etc. So come on tomorrow. We'll be watching the. I shouldn't just go. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing. Got to make it sound exciting. Join me tomorrow for Alex Murdaugh, the sentencing. We're going to be watching that right here on Legal Vices. It's going to be fun. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be people. There's going to be tears. There's going to be anger. There's going to be Alex Murdaugh. Join us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. There. Doesn't that make you want to watch it?
Absolutely.
I hope so. All right.
And I'm going to be on Megan Fox's channel later on at, I believe, 9 p.m. Central. We're going to be going over one of the other dependency hearings in the Kowalski case. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm back on YouTube. My check is up and running.
Yay.
For the time until it conks out on me, and then I'll have to get a new laptop. But I'm working on replacing it. So if you want to go and subscribe to me, I am at Remy_legal, and I'm going to be doing some coverage soon of some stuff probably related to misandry and advocating for men, because that's what I do. Maybe some other cases, who knows? We'll see. I'm going to be back on YouTube. I'm excited. I'm going to be doing new content. You guys are going to see a lot more of me in December. So look forward to that, and subscribe to me if you haven't, because I got good stuff going.
Oh, wait a minute. Wow. There's There's some super chats we missed.
Oh, really?
Hang on. Okay, we got the wow. Holy crap. J.A., are you still here? Holy crap. I think we missed this one. I think we missed J.A.'s. Did we get this one? Glad to see you're both well. Welcome back. Oh my God, J.A., if you're still here, I apologize. I just saw this.
Thank you.
J.A., are you still here? Please say you're still here. Please, 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 please. Oh, damn it. J.A., glad to see you both well. Welcome back, Chandler, Remington. Back to work. I go comparing terms and condition docs by... Oh, fuck. That was literally like an hour and a half ago. I am so sorry.
Well, thank you, J.A. It happens.
And equality. I know we did you. I know we did this one, but just in case, you guys are so funny. Love you two together. And Luke Smith, sorry I missed your super chat again. That was also like an hour and a half ago. I was just too entertained by all your ass talk. Yeah. So there you go, Luke Smith. Thank you so much. I'm a lawyer. Just ask my lawyer. Jane Zan. How did I miss all of these? What the fuck, me?
I'm not sure.
I suck.
It might be StreamYard, possibly.
No, I'm just, Nah.
Well, it's good
Jane
to take
Zanis became a YouTube member. Jane Zanis, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. I apologize for making you wait so long for an hour and 6 minutes to hear the acknowledgement of that. I apologize. Right,
well,
and we have...
You know what it was? It was not intentional, Jeff.
Yeah.
Take a page from Sarah Boone's book.
And Duncan, Idaho. Old Dune is one of my favorites.
We did this one.
We didn't finish reading. I read we didn't finish reading it.
Oh, okay.
We only got as far as one of Dune's many problems. No, we didn't do this one.
We did.
No, we didn't. We did another one. Because this one doesn't say you have to read the book. Old Dune is one of my favorites, but I really love New Dune too. One of Old Dune's many problems is that to try to be 100% faithful in just one movie to such an expansive book, it got tons of flaws, but it's a cult classic. That, and they just didn't have the technology to do the voice and things like that. So, anywho, yes, apologies for being just like, I always bitch and moan and whine and complain that this is like the lowest super chatted week, and then finally we get a lot of super chats. Yeah, and then I'm like, I guess I probably just assumed they weren't coming in and didn't pay attention because I suck. I apologize. You can all just take.
It's like, we're used to not really getting a lot of super chats for this one, so it's a lovely surprise. And thank you everybody who has super chatted. We all always appreciate your support.
Yeah, whip me, beat me, call me Edna, whatever. Yeah, too busy with my lustful eyes glued to Marsha. How do you see Marsha when you have a Chandler sitting right in front of you?
I'm not hot today. I'm like, you're like, oh, you look so great. I do not look great, but thank you for lying. That was very sweet of you.
Oh, I wasn't eating an hour and a half ago.
Oh, how was the Tech Bucky, or however you pronounce it?
Oh, it's great. It's like, that's one of my favorite places in the entire universe to go get it from.
I'll have to come to Korea and try it.
You have to.
It'll happen. Yeah.
Well, it's now time to wrap this up and send you all on over to Nicholas Starov, because we promised to do that. Yesterday, we promised we would send you on over there. Today, I remembered, and it's all set up. Yesterday, nobody got transferred because YouTube is assho. Yeah. So again, let's go over this. You should be automatically redirected to Nick, but they only seem to do that for about 25% of the people for some reason. The rest of you, there's going to be like a little blue box that pops up at the top of the chat and says, hey, what's going on over at Nick Starov's place? Check it out. And if that doesn't work, you're just on your own and find your way over there all by your little. So let's all go see what he's doing. The Young Thug Rico trial. So
oh yeah,
let's go check him out. Tell him I sent you. And later, in about 2 hours from now, you'll be able to see Chandler Remington and a bunch of other folks over on Megan Fox's channel.
That's not 2 hours from now. It's supposed to be at 9 p.m. Eastern.
It was like 4 a.m. my time.
I'm pretty sure it's at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern. That's what Megan said.
Yeah,
unless I got the time wrong.
That's 11 a.m. my time.
So maybe you got the time wrong.
No, you said it's like it's worth waking up at 4 a.m. for. That's what you told me. Remember?
Well, you said that it was at 4 a.m. I didn't really check the time, but I mean, for me, it's going to be 6 p.m. and for Flux, it's going to be 9. And Flux said that she was going to, stay up past her bedtime, but she'd probably have to go to bed at 11:30.
Yeah, that's 11 a.m.
It's 9 p.m. It's 9 p.m. on Megan's channel. Yeah, so you
Let's go see what Nick's doing.
Okay.
We're going to send you on over to Nick, everybody. Take care.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody.
Right.
Thanks for
Bye,
watching.
guys.
See you next
See
week.
ya. Bye, everybody. I'm going to end the stream. I clicked the wrong button. Goodbye again. See ya.